just to kind of like roll through as an image slideshow. What's the best way to do that, you reckon?
Perfect. I think you sharing your screen will probably work the best.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me see if I can share my second screen. Uh,
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was just checking on the stream. Yeah, I think if you share your stream, this like whole desktop is shared, so it should pop up here and it should look good. Yeah,
all right,
that looks good.
sweet. All right, awesome.
Perfect. All right. I'm gonna close
Uh,
Twitch so I'm not distracted by ourselves.
Wonderful.
We are
Uh,
officially live on Twitch and YouTube right now.
Delightful. Let me chuck that on Blue Sky real quick, or if you already have a post up, because then I can share
No,
that
yeah, you go for it. I'll post something too, or I'll repost yours.
one.
I'll get it started on TikTok too. All right. Woohoo!
I am
Think
so looking forward to this.
I know. I'm so excited. I was. It was hard to go to sleep last night. I was like, you're gonna wake up any minute, and I have to go to sleep now. This is unfair. Unfair. No.
hmm
Oh, all right. Where do we start?
I would suggest we start at the beginning.
I
Um, all right. Okay. Let me correct my notes. I will, by the way, I will not be able to look at us because on one screen I have the images up, on the other I have my notes, but I'll
no
just
no
assume you're
worries.
there.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'll jump in. Make sure
All right.
that I'm here. That you know I'm
Sweet.
here.
Wonderful. Okay, so welcome everyone to the first pilot episode of SigMarines, which is a bit of a working name because we had the idea for this podcast literally last week, so we kind of jumped off the cliff and are building this plane on the way down. But what we are planning to do here is take the cool, unhinged stuff that we love from Warhammer 40k and tell you, hey, if you like this thing in Warhammer 40k, you might like these things in Warhammer Fantasy because there is a lot of thematic overlap. Um, I am Myra Gill, one of your hosts, and with me today is Pat, whose Twitch stream we were kindly allowed to steal for today. So, Pat, when I asked you what topic you'd like to start us off with on the first episode, you decided on quite a big one, huh?
Yeah. It's been interesting to me so far in my Warhammer 40k journey. Uh, I I I don't know where I first saw some of the Chaos Space Marines, but I that ended up being the first combat box I got, and I really liked the aesthetic of the all black and gold, and that's where I thought we could start today.
Absolutely. We'll be starting with the glories of the Black Legion, the Sons of Horus themselves. Now, before we get into this, a quick disclaimer for the people watching. We'll be giving a little bit of context on the Black Legion, but this is not a full deep dive into Warhammer 40k lore. So, if you'd like to have a solid footing in that setting before you dive into this podcast, I would suggest starting with places like Iskander and Coda or Adeptus Ridiculous to get a bit of a uh, Warhammer 40k lore foothold. They're both fantastic podcasts that are very approachable to newcomers. You won't need similar knowledge for Warhammer Fantasy, since exploring that is quite literally what we're here for. At the same time, we're not necessarily going to have the time for incredible deep dives into the lore because we're kind of touching on multiple factions based on thematic overlap with their 40k counterparts, or rather, the 40k factions that I think they have overlap with. If you'd like super deep dives into Warhammer Fantasy lore, I cannot recommend the Law Bid streams by Andy Law and Lawmaster of Sotek enough. They go into incredible depth, sometimes on single characters for a couple hours. It's fantastic. And with that out of the way, let's start on the Black Legion. So, Pat, you want to give us an introduction on the Sons of the Arch-Traitor, or shall I take it?
Yeah, I can give just a little bit. So I had just started read. I had just read Horus Rising, the first book of Horus Heresy, and was introduced to the Luna Wolves, which become the sons of Horus, and from there, slowly, there's a fantastic picture of Horus as the War Master himself. Uh, and is that it's got the symbol of the Luna Wolves on his like right knee there, right?
I believe so, yes. This is the
Yeah.
white and gold of the Lunar Wolves.
Yeah. So so that I guess to summarize, Horus goes to the dark side a little bit. He he tries to take over, and his sons of Horus uh, become the Black Legion. And you're welcome to jump in here and explain any other pieces I've missed.
I think you very much got it. The Lunar Wolves, the sons of Horus Lupercal, the first found Primarch, if Altharius isn't to be believed, which he shouldn't be, generally considered to be the greatest of the Primarchs, which is why he was named War Master when the Emperor, of course, went back to Terra to work in his secret hobby projects. Eventually, the crushing weight of responsibility set in on Horus, and cracks started to show around the time when he renamed his legion to the Sons of Horus. Eventually, on Davon's moon, of course, he was stabbed with the stinky chaos knife that sowed the seeds of corruption in him, which eventually led to him turning traitor, kickstarting the Horus heresy, and eventually losing during the Siege of Terra, where Ezekiel Abaddon, captain of the First Company, takes over, renames the Sons of Horus yet again, this time to the Black Legion, where they would acquire their iconic black and gold color scheme. Um, Generally speaking, the Black Legion is one of the biggest legions of chaos undivided, not necessarily in the Ward Bearers way, where they're extremely fanatic about all four of the gods of chaos, but rather in the fashion of being able to court the favor of each of the four gods equally, and in that way bind all the forces of chaos under a single banner, which so far has almost exclusively been done by the aforementioned Abaddon the Despoiler, who has led multiple Black Crusades, unite great war hosts of all four Chaos gods to try and topple the Imperium. The 13th one, the most recent Black Crusade, directly led to the fall of Cadia and ripping the galaxy in half, of course. Um, let's see. So, yeah, that is a very brief summary on the Black Legion Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, a
And
rough 30,000 or so pages of lore condensed into a couple
yeah,
minutes. That is pretty
exactly.
good.
It's yeah. So and of course we have Horus being a bit of a bad man. Sometimes very iconic picture. And of course, after the fall of Cadia, the Cicatrix Maledictum erupted from the Eye of Terror, which is the primary gateway for chaos to enter real space. So, Patrick, Eye of Terror, pretty bad, right?
Yeah, not great. It seems like a pretty solid entry point for I don't know every Black Crusade that's come through
Pretty
there.
much. I
Yeah, pretty much.
think so.
Yeah. So and Katie has been holding the fort. I haven't gotten far enough into the lore to. I know some of the finer, bigger plot points, but from what I've seen so far, pretty awesome at uh, holding their ground right up there against the eye.
Yeah, they're pretty much the cork in a bottle of chaos.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
wild. But so, you know what's worse than one Eye of Terror?
I hope it's not more than one Eye of Terror.
It's 2 Eyes of
Oh,
Terror.
two Eyes of
So
Terror.
yeah, um, the Warhammer Fantasy world is kind of unhinged because okay, so I'm gonna have to condense this a lot because you know the Warhammer 40k problem of where do I start explaining the lore,
Yeah, it's
and then
just
you spam like half a
spiders.
bottle of yeah, it's like you slam half a bottle of vodka, you huff paint fumes, and then you go. So it all started like tens of like hundreds of
Couple
millennia ago
millennium prior to
when,
this, yeah.
when the Egyptian Cancepations declared war on the Toad Gods. I'm
Yeah.
kind of the same problem here, but speaking of those Toad Gods, the old ones aren't just the 40k thing. They're also what kickstarted Warhammer Fantasy.
Okay.
Um, they arrived in silver ships. They were a spacefaring species. They found the Warhammer world and they did what the old ones do best, which is reshape worlds to proliferate life as they see fit. There's a lot that goes on there that we can get into in future episodes because it's really quite interesting. But for now, I'm going to condense it to they set up basically webway gates, more or less, on the north and south pole of the world in order to enable fast travel, more or less. Um, the problem with that is that eventually something happened that caused those gates to destabilize and collapse and basically turn into two giant chaos gates on either side of the world, North Pole and South Pole.
Sorry.
Um,
So you've got not an Eye of Terror floating out in space, but one's just strapped to both poles.
yeah, you've got the Eyes of Terror. It's it's
Eyes
it's
of Terror.
not it's not great.
Not
Um,
ideal.
Not ideal. I've got the map with the fantasy world here, which if you've ever seen a map of the real world, you can kind of see that Games Workshop just kind of like copied geography's homework and changed it a bit so the teacher didn't notice. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely
but
got a few similarities. I can see
yeah,
some general shapes with like an Atlantis section over there.
yeah, that's also one home of the High Elves, and we'll get to them in the later part of the stream. But for
Fantastic.
now, I'm not sure if you can see it, but like all the way down south, you've got the southern wastes. Here be
Yeah.
demons, and
Here
then
be.
similarly up north, we have the northern wastes, the chaos wasteland. So basically, the idea is that the further north you go, the more chaos corrupted everything becomes until you basically just walk into the warp, the realm of chaos. We don't know too much about the southern pole because 90% of Warhammer focuses on like this area, roughly. Um, the Empire, Bretonia, Ulth One, Naggaroth, more or less. But most of it's quite Empire focused. We won't be discussing them too much today, but because the Northern Gate is a lot closer to where all the plot happens, that one comes up a lot more than the Southern one. But the Southern one is also bad.
It is also bad. There's just a lot more space between them and uh
Yeah,
and the plot.
there's a lot more space between them and the plot, definitely. Um, this is also a good point, a point where I'm going to bring up that I've seen people from that have written for Games Workshop argue that the fantasy Warhammer Fantasy could probably take on factions from Warhammer 40k, not in sure numbers, obviously, but just like roughly equal numbers. It's not nearly as one-sided as you'd expect. And when I really thought about it, I kind of had to agree because these fuckers have been pulling like double duty Cadia while not controlling the entire world with feudal to Renaissance level tech. And they still held it for like 6,500 years ish.
That's a good run. I'd say it's a pretty good run with subpar tech relative to
Yeah,
what we're used to in 40k.
yeah. These guys don't have bolters. The best they have are like muskets and steampunk tanks, and they're still just like beating the snot out of bloodthirsters. It's great.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Warhammer 40k Chaos, you'll be very familiar with Chaos here. They're practically identical. Cornus Gorn, Nurgle is still stinky, Slanesh is still horny, Chinch is still a bastard. They're quite identical, to the point where they still sell demon miniatures in boxes that let you build them for both 40k and Age of Sigmar or the old
That's awesome.
well,
Yeah,
because they're the same guys.
it's the same.
The
Yeah,
only
nothing
yeah,
changes there. It's comfortable. That's
exactly. Yeah, it's very comfy.
okay.
Back when I started with old Warhammer Fantasy when I was like 13 or 14, the demon kits had both square and rounded bases in them, so you could decide if you wanted to build them for 40k or Warhammer. It was real fun.
That's awesome. Is Age of Sigmar all squared bases, or
Age
was
of
fantasy?
Fantasy was the old world, which is basically the reboot of Fantasy, is also going to be square bases. Age of
Okay,
Sigmar is rounded bases,
is
though.
round. Okay.
Yeah. So we have ourselves demons that are very similar, but not just the demons, because one of the main factions of Chaos is the Warriors of Chaos, and they're basically just Chaos Space Marines without the guns. I mean, case in point, look at this guy.
Yeah, like that man could he could easily be a Chaos Space Marine. There's nothing. If you gave him a gun, I'd be like, yeah, he's definitely
Yeah,
a Chaos Space Marine. Given this,
absolute.
he's got all the skulls, but
Yeah,
they're not painted gold. Or never, sorry, skulls, but they're not painted. There's no like Aquilas near them, so there's no doubt. But other than that, yeah, he's chilling behind Abaddon. He's like a lieutenant, clearly.
absolutely. He's got a chain axe and a power sword.
Yeah, Axe, power sword. It's got lightning rippling off of it. Fantastic.
Mhm.
He's got a lot of blades on him. This man is strapped.
This bro is just like he just like waltzes into a peaceful town that doesn't have any weapons and just like starts handing out swords. It's like you're going to fight me to
Yeah,
make this more interesting.
yeah. I'm not. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm not just. I got to put up some sort of a challenge. You don't just want to go in and just
exactly.
destroy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, if anything, the biggest aesthetic difference is that Chaos Space Marines usually have backpacks, where these guys tend to have capes. And quite often you also see them with these really sick tower shields that you don't really see in 40k. Based on
There's
that helmet, I'm pretty sure this is Abaddon, actually. No, Archaon, actually. We'll get to him in a bit because he's a baller.
he's yeah. I like his third eye there. Just
That's the Eye of Shirian. That's one
he,
of his six great MacGuffins of evil.
yeah.
We'll
That's
get to those because Abaddon. I keep mixing them up. It's Archaon. It's not Abaddon. Archaon went on the ultimate evil fetch quest, and that third eye, that's one of those fetch quest items.
that's yeah. That's that's a good one to pick up if you're gonna get. Like, I would probably, if there was an option to choose my evil additions, I might consider putting one on the back of my head, just because that tends to be where a lot of not so great things come from. Uh, and
That's fair.
having my own eye on the back of my head might be nice. But second best spot, right there in the forehead.
To be fair, the Eye of Shurian does give him prophetic visions,
Ah,
so you're
okay.
not too far off, actually.
Okay, then yeah, then yeah, he actually he has a little bit of an eye. He's got uh, an eye that can see into the future. So
Absolutely.
that'll do it. Oh, I like the shield though. The
Yeah,
shield.
chill.
There's a distinct lack of shields in 40k that I think I would like to see more Space Marines with tower shields.
I think there was something like Storm Shields or something. I think I've seen Centurions on occasion, but yeah, they're not quite common. Although, I suppose with bolters and last guns, etc., it
Yeah.
does make sense that you prefer mobility over a shield that just gets shot through.
Yeah, right. It's just gonna get pummeled. So
I
I guess
mean,
not carrying around something that weighs probably as much as you is
yeah. I
probably
mean,
gonna
then
slow you down.
again, we're talking 40k. they're running around with chainsaws and like
Yeah, like it's
running at the
nothing.
guys with the rail guns to like stab them in close combat. The shields wouldn't be the silliest thing.
Yeah, there are there are sillier things have happened.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that Chaos and 40k and Fantasy can very much agree on is doing big invasions of the places that don't like being invaded by Chaos. Now, like I mentioned, most of the setting is very Empire centric. We'll talk a little bit about the Empire down the line. For now, if you think about the Holy Roman Empire, you've more or less got it. Very decentralized, elective monarchy. Warhammer Fantasy loves its elective monarchies. Constant civil strife and bickering. They've got a bit of steampunk vibe to them sometimes. They have muskets alongside halberds, kind of like pike and shot deals. They've got the
Yeah.
steam tanks that I mentioned earlier. Um, they're pretty cool, but also the Empire is like 90% forests, and we're not talking like pleasant forest full of elves and nice things. We're talking um, murderers, thieves, and mutants behind every tree. You're not
Hmm.
going to see the sun for miles. You don't like being here, forests.
It's like a Mirkwood sort of
Yeah,
feel
basically,
to it.
like a
Like,
lot of the Empire is just Mirkwood.
okay, all right. So yeah, that's not great. That's not the best place. You don't want to be walking around in the Black Forest while trying to get the next town.
Yeah, pretty much. So there are a lot of invasions that come from the north, and we'll be talking about two of those in a bit. But it's very worth keeping in mind that, like, just how in 40k you've got chaos cults and warbands all over the place, there's plenty of warbands just within the empire itself. Um, so there is always some degree of a guerrilla war going on there. So, speaking of great invasions, actually, that is where we're going to get into our first real parallel, because we've, of course, discussed the Black Crusades of Abaddon. And to contrast those, in 40k, we have, in fantasy, we have the Everchosen. The Everchosen are kind of like Horus and Abaddon in that they're guys that have gotten okayed by all four of the gods. Like Slanesh was cool with them, Khorne was cool with them, Nurgle was cool with them, Tzeentch was cool with them. They're like, yeah, you guys rule. Go forth and like destroy everything in our name. In
Create chaos. Go.
exactly. Yeah. In 40k, we've mainly had fulfilling that role Abaddon and Horus. There are smaller figures, of course, but those are like the two big ones. And Abaddon's like, especially with the Black Crusades, Abaddon is the one guy that tried 13 times. Everchosen are 13 guys that got to try once,
Okay.
which
Okay.
means Abaddon has had millennia of experience and like past failures to learn from. The last like every Everchosen had to start from scratch, which means that the one that actually destroyed the world got it right on his first try.
Yeah, that's a bigger accomplishment. I mean, like cracking the galaxy is a feat that by no means I don't mean to suggest it's not, but but taking 13 times to get it right, you're like, okay, you worked up to that. But first try destroying the world, that's another step forward. That's a you're on another level there that you're able to just break the world on your first try.
Absolutely. And it's not like he just got lucky or something. We'll explore the Destroyer of the World a little bit more in the near future. But for now, I just want to talk a little bit about the three Everchosen that I think either we know the most about or I just personally felt were the coolest, so I knew where to find stuff on them. But I think that definitely the latter two are just the ones we know the most about because they were the most recent ones. Um, the first one is let's see, what was his name? Morcar. And Morcar, I frankly mainly want to talk about, partially because he's the first, but also because I just found this incredibly sick image. And I was like, we need to talk about this.
That is fantastic.
It
Please
looks
tell
so good.
what am I even looking at here? There's
So,
a lot going on.
I mean, what are you looking at? Do
Okay.
you want to give it a go?
Yeah, let me okay, so I'm definitely getting Mirkwood vibes from sort of the background here, like where I'm seeing trees that look like they have faces in them. It's sort of swampy where like there's mist that seems to be like clinging to all sorts of stuff, and in the middle here I see uh some sort of man barbarian, long flowing locks, uh scantily clad. I think scantily's fair. He's got a
Yeah.
loincloth. He's got a bracers. He's got
Uh,
boots, but that's
Pat,
about it. Oh,
your mic is. I'm not sure. Maybe it's on my end, but I got some robotic static
oh,
noises.
sorry. Is that better now?
I think so. Yeah, the
Okay,
machine's first is being appeased. Very good.
there we go. Okay, okay.
Right.
So we got this scantily clad man gripping an epically golden warhammer like it is absolutely gigantic, easily what 4 5 feet tall, and he looks like he's swinging it at something that has just popped out behind him. Uh, it definitely looks chaos-y. I see some markings on its armor. It's in like full plate. It's got horns on its head. It's like it's two. They've got two weapons. Some sort of sword that appears to be emanating sort of a reddish, fiery, maybe like ethereal quality to it. Uh, both the sword and what appears to be like, I don't know the right word for a combination warhammer axe that,
That would generally be a halberd, but
yeah,
those
like
are
a halberd.
two-handed weapons.
Yeah, it's like halberd, but it also has like a meat tenderizer portion on the on the warhammer side.
Mhm.
I've never seen that before. So this is a and it looks like he's giving like a little sneak attack onto our scantily clad golden warhammer warrior here.
Yeah. So what you're looking at here is Morcar, the first ever chosen of Chaos, um, squaring off in a 1v1 duel with Sigmar Heldenhammer of the Umbarogan tribe, the founder of the Empire, and basically one of the biggest ballers in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. He is the guy that Age of Sigmar is named after because this guy is the direct link between old Warhammer and Age of Sigmar. He quite
Okay.
literally um, pretty much reforged the entire world after Chaos destroyed it, if I'm not mistaken. Take that with a grain of salt because I'm not super at home in Age of Sigmar lore. But he is the creator of the Empire, revered as a god in his homeland. Um, and you know that meme, right? Of the Emperor fighting Horus on the vengeful spirits, and then the meme is that the Emperor said, "You did it, Horus Heresy. You have defeated me. You truly are the Warhammer 40,000."
I was gonna ask if you could repeat his name because it sounded like you said his name was Holden Hammer.
Heldenhammer,
Holden Hammer. See,
which,
he's literally holding a hammer.
yeah, he is the Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
he
I'm not joking. Warhammer is named after that Warhammer he is wielding. That
okay.
is Galmaraz.
That
At least
is
I'm pretty sure that would be Galmaraz.
I need I've got to I have to show this to my daughter because that's her main complaint about Warhammer is that there are not enough hammers. There's a distinct lack of hammers in Warhammer.
Oh, she'd like the warrior priests of Sigmar. They literally are like bald monks in armor that wield warhammers because they're Sigmar's weapon.
There. Okay. Okay. Well, I have much to share because that hammer, that golden hammer, is glorious.
It's made by dwarves.
Well, all
Basically,
as all good hammers are, truly.
yeah. Basically, everything cool in Warhammer Fantasy is made by dwarves.
That
Not
makes
entirely
sense.
true, but a lot of it.
That
Galmaraz was gifted to Sigmar for helping the dwarves out. He was such a massive bro to the dwarves that 2,000 years later, the dwarves still regularly help out his empire. Because they're like, well, that guy was really cool. He helped us a lot. We should help his descendants 2,000 years later.
See, that's what I love about dwarves is that they don't just their loyalty isn't just to like one dude. That's especially on human time scales. They're like, you know what? His 12th great grandson, yeah, his that dude's 12th great grandfather was awesome. Here is a mithril uh, sword. Don't lose it. It took me 4,000 years to make. Here you go.
Pretty much. Do note though, when I say everything cool in this setting is made by dwarves, I also mean this armor. There's
Oh,
chaos dwarves.
oh my God! There's chaos dwarves. That's
They're
fantastic.
super cool. If we have a little bit of time near the end, there is one parallel I can make that kind of touches on them. Otherwise, we'll probably have to save them for an Iron Warriors episode because they're pretty much Iron Warriors.
That's okay. That's fair. That's fair. We'll get
Okay,
back. We'll get back to them.
yeah. But so this is Morcar first Everchosen of Chaos. Uh, just to point out how much of a badass it was, it took Sigmar to beat him. Sigmar had to 1v1 this guy to stop him.
That's a pretty. I'd say bringing in the actual namesake of an
They had
age.
they had to bring in Johnny Warhammer to deal with this man.
Yeah, yeah. It seems you're on a pretty good roll if that's who
Yeah.
they gotta pull up, tap in to to end your to end you.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna skip ahead by about a dozen Everchosen now, and we're going to skip to the 12th, which is Azavar Kul. It's a bit of an old image, but I do think he looks quite badass with the screaming sword and everything.
Yeah, the sword is fantastic. It looks like vampiric of sorts. It,
Demonic,
oh,
I'd say. Generally with chaos, if stuff is freaky, you can assume some sort of demonic
yeah.
possession
There's a
is going on.
demon somewhere in and or around that sword. That and
That
maybe his belt
maybe,
because that belt is also fierce.
yeah.
It's got teeth,
Um,
eyes, horns.
it's got desiccated heads hanging from it.
Yeah, yeah. It's got all the things of chaos you're looking for.
Yeah, that sword might be the Slayer of Kings. Actually, don't quote me on that. But if it is, we'll get to it in a little bit. So, as of our cool, 12th ever chosen of chaos. So, Pat, World War One, pretty bad, right?
Generally described as bad. Yeah, I think across
Yeah,
the board. I don't think I
not
don't think it's ever been described anything but. I think that's a good way of
yeah,
putting it.
exactly. So not ideal. Do you happen to know what they called it at the time, like after it was done, but before the Second World War
Yes, I
began?
believe it was the Great War.
Correct.
That's what they would referred to it as the Great War.
The Great War, indeed. So, Azafar Kul is the guy that started the conflict that would become known as the Great War against Chaos. Just to kind of like put into perspective how much this guy just wrecked shit.
Okay, so we're talking it's bad. The whole world is aware and not very pleased.
Man, what bad. It was not a good time. Now, at this point, for the pedants in the audience, I do need to point out a slight lore conflict. I mainly have the second edition army books at home, but the eighth edition core rulebook. Uh, the seventh edition army books told me that this conflict started in 2031 Imperial calendar. Um, but the eighth edition book said it started in 22,071. So that is quite a big difference. I'm not sure what the most recent one is. If someone would like to, actually us in the comments or in chat, by all means.
Just hit us up.
Yeah, it's like doesn't matter too much, but I figured I throw that out there so that you
Yeah.
know that I do actually read my source material.
It,
Um,
if anybody doesn't believe it by now, I don't know what to tell you.
yeah. All right. So as for cool, I'll take us back to the map real quick. He was a Kurgan warlord, so these guys up here.
Kurgan up there in definitely not northwestern Russia.
Totally not. It's funny that you mention that. Uh, so basically, at the start of the Great War Against Chaos, or just before it, I suppose, Kul looked at the Empire and saw that it was just a complete mess. At this point, decentralized authority had completely collapsed, and there were three emperors arrayed against each other in the time of three emperors. Very original name.
That's how there was a few of those in
Yeah,
human
I mean,
history.
true. And of course, we're dealing with Games Workshop, who decided to name the very angry Primarch Angry Ron.
Angry.
Yeah,
Anger. I'm waiting for that's yeah. Time of Three Kings. It's that's or Time of Three Emperors is kings or emperors. I got lost.
emperors.
Emperors. Time of Three Emperors. Yeah, we that's a solid tradition back to even Italy. There's a period of uh multiple emperors going on. But this is all right. So we've got Kurgan coming in, or Kurgan looking from the northeast into the empire, saying,
Yeah,
"Well, this is a hot mess. We got
exactly.
we got three emperors. We're talking like late Roman Empire. We've broken into the east and west. Italy's getting who knows who's ruling what piece at this point."
Yeah, it's a complete mess. They're vying with each other for control. And on top of that, Nurgle's been busy. Like we're talking wells that had like served towns for generation were pumping up bloody slime. Pigs were
Ooh,
getting up on their hind legs and screaming with human voices. And Nurgle was just like sitting his fat, pustulant ass down on the Empire, and like everybody got sick.
you've got Nurgle just dancing through the empire, and
Yeah, and Nurgle
not
is just
ideal.
default dancing on them. It's not a great time to be an Imperial citizen.
Yeah,
Uh, and of course, all of this caused a lot of corruption because people are getting desperate, they're getting sick, they're going to look for alternative sources of aid, they get to chaos cults, which of course fueled a bunch of paranoia and zealotry to the point that there was open warfare in streets between witch hunters. And these guys are definitely a chaos cult. I know I got it wrong the first 20 times, guys, but believe me, these guys definitely eat babies. And they, to be fair, they did get some genuine baby eaters, but I mean, any kind of like witch hunting paranoia, there were definitely a lot of innocent dead as well.
yeah. Like most of the time, you're not burning witches when
Yeah,
you're on a. They call it a witch hunt, not because you're actually hunting witches most of the time.
yeah. So, as for Cole saw all of this, I was like, yeah, we can take him. And he started marching south. Um, Now, one thing to note is that while all of this mess was going on, there was one city in the Empire, all the way down here, Null, that had a young nobleman actually kind of rally everyone and had the right balance of zealotry and actual common sense to purge the city of its chaos worshippers without just completely razing the city.
Okay,
His name is,
so he was able to get try to burn out a little bit of everything, but leave some of the houses intact.
yeah, basically. So his name is Magnus, and we'll get back to him because he'll be important later. But basically, this little bit of the empire is currently halfway competent. And for the rest, they're trying, but it's a struggle. Um, so as for Cole goes up north for a little bit to acquire a surprise tool that will help us later. And then he starts marching south from where the Kurgan are into the northern wastes, into Troll Country.
Into Troll
Um,
Country.
yeah,
What
Troll Country.
aptly named.
It's full of trolls.
It's
There's even a
troll.
certain troll king there, which we'll get to Throg at some point. I'm sure he's quite the character. Now, important to note here is that roughly this bit of land, this isn't the Empire. This is Kislev, which is basically imagine throwing every Slavic country into a vague melting pot and then throwing a lot of bears onto it, and that's Kislev.
Okay.
Uh,
Bear country, troll
Bear
country,
country,
bear country, Slavic bear
I,
country.
bear country, ice magic country. Um, there is a lot going on there, but Kislev sees Asfarkul rampaging through troll country, and they're on the front lines against chaos. They see a shitstorm coming. Like they know when a shitstorm's coming when they see one. So the Tsar of Kislev basically just turns around to the Empire and goes like, "Hey guys, little help here." But he's just kind of like screaming into a bar brawl because
Yeah,
everyone's
like
fighting each other. So there's no one listening except for one. Except for one guy. One guy listens. And let's see. Yeah, that would be the Count of Ostland. So the empire is divided into a bunch of provinces that each have their own elector counts. These elector counts elect the new emperor. They couldn't agree on which one should become emperor, so there were three of them. Elective monarchy, like we said, it's not super important, but the Count of Ostland, which is, as the name may imply, in the east, has been fighting a lot of chaos. So he's like, ooh, a chance to fuck up chaos? Yeah, I'll join you. That sounds fun.
let's go.
Yeah, so he takes his force and he moves north to reinforce Kislev. Uh, and it's at this point that the surprise tool that will help us later kicks in. Because Asvarkul has brought with him a dragon ogre Shoggoth. These
A
things are
drag, a dragon ogre. So we're
yeah,
talking. It looks. That's fascinating. It looks like a combination, like a centaur, but if instead of a person, it was an ogre, and instead of a horse, it was a dragon. This is
got him in one more or less. If
wow.
you look near his foot, you can see a couple of humans,
Oh yeah, I
and
see them now. I thought those were rocks, but now I see
yeah,
that they're fully armored in plate men that are the size of its foot. No,
yeah,
maybe like its claw, like a claw on its foot.
like this guy's toenail is the size of your torso.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely the size I'm getting here is and his toenails are sharp too. So I that's
This guy
fantastic.
is. I think you'll like his name because his name is Kolek Sun Eater.
He's the
And I
sun
mean,
eater. Okay.
look at this man and tell me he could not like fulfill that name.
Yeah,
Like that is not an empty threat. This man will eat the
I'll
sun.
eat your son. I'll eat your children. I'll eat the actual son. I'll just
That's the one.
any kind of
It's
son.
not It's not son as in like offspring. It's son as in the celestial
I'm
body.
going to eat your celestial body. He's
Yeah,
coming for
but
our children. No, no, not the children.
the son. But the reason that he's called that is because the dragon ogres interact with lightning in a very interesting way. Like as you see, he's kind of like holding lightning in his hand.
Yeah, it does appear that he's grasping the lightning as well as his warhammer. There's so many warhammers. I'm like my daughter's gonna be so excited about all. I'm just gonna show her hammers for days now.
Yeah, like
Yeah, it
hammers
looks
for days.
hammers for days. Yeah, it looks like that. The lightning is powering, or at least being called down by said giant warhammer. Sort of Thor-esque.
Pretty much. The dragon ogres are some of the favorite servants of chaos, incredibly old and powerful, and they can command the storms. We won't go too deep into them now. Again, Andy Lowell and Lore Master of Sodic have a fantastic stream on these guys. If you'd like to know more about them, very worth the watch. But for now, these guys are basically dragon ogre centaur Thors, and they're helping Asvarkul.
Yeah,
So
that's a good surprise weapon to have on your side, I'd say. The old
yeah,
dragon, ogre, centaur Thors.
Yeah.
You've got
So it's like Count of Osland. It's cute that you're helping Kislev. They got dumpstered, man. It
yeah,
was so they got bodied. It wasn't even funny. Um,
understandably, understandably.
yeah, yeah. It was like they put up a good fight, but like you're not beating a goddamn dragon ogre, man. Like
Yeah,
no.
you you got to bring a lot of steam tanks to make a dent in that dragon armor.
Yeah, good luck dealing with them. So the armies of Kislev and Oslam just get absolutely dumpstered by the forces of Asbarkul, and they march on to the city of Prague, which is totally not named after Prague. How like where'd you get that idea from?
Where could you possibly have thought that? I'm sure if you overlay this city, it in no way looks at all like the city of Prague.
I've not done that actually. That might be the case. That would be
It
really
would be
funny.
fascinating to see. It
Your
makes you want to think about it now.
your mic is acting up again.
Oh no. Let's try now. How about now? Now?
No, yeah, I think so.
There we go.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so the city is sieged for a while, and by this point, uh, they're getting kind of desperate, but they're holding on to hope in Prague. Because word has reached them of a guy that all the way down south in faraway Nuln that has been kind of like gathering a ragtag army of zealots, the desperate and the fanatical, and taking the fight to chaos. I'm sure you remember Magnus. We talked about him a
Yeah,
little while
our
ago.
old boy Magnus is keeping it together, burning out some chaos, and now he's like, "Hey, I heard there's some chaos coming your way."
Yeah. Magnus can best be summarized as I'm here to kill chaos. And kill chaos he did. So by this point, he had rallied most of the Empire behind him because all the Electric Hounds were fighting. They noticed that there was a sudden absence of like any man fit for military duty in Ostland, and there was like a whole lot of chaos stuff going on in the north, and they're like, maybe hit the pause on the civil strife and deal with the existential threat.
Yeah,
They're
nothing brings humans together like something about to kill them first. Whatever.
exactly. It's kind of like, listen, my great grandson can stab your great grandson over our like territorial dispute. There won't
But
be any territory to dispute if we
and
don't like
we're
crush his
not gonna
actual
have
territory.
any grandsons, I assure you. If we don't
Yeah,
stop this right now, yeah, let's. Okay, fine. We will put this aside. We're coming back to this, but
yeah.
we'll.
They saw that Magnus was a wildly popular figure and really competent at doing what he was doing too, so they all basically threw their weight behind him. And this very rapidly turned Magnus's army from this like ragtag bunch of like militia, flagellants, and zealots into an actual like professional Empire army, the likes of which they hadn't seen since the Empire was last a unified force. So this
That
is like
is
basically
fantastic.
imagine if the Mongol Empire invaded China during the war. Was it the Warring States period? I think that was no, that was the
Yeah.
name. I think that was when Japan was fractured, not China.
Yes. I'm trying to.
Three Kingdoms, I think.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
When.
they have the Romans of the Three Kingdoms at least. So
Yeah,
imagine like if Genghis Khan invaded China during the Romance of the Three Kingdoms,
and they were like,
and
okay, this
pause
is.
on this, Lu Bu or whoever, I'm picking a name that I'm remembering at
Yeah.
random. I'm so sorry to fans of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I'm completely butchering it. But like just suddenly you're not fighting three like completely chaotic empires, you're
Disparate.
fighting
Yeah,
one.
one. Yeah, all of a sudden they went, oh, okay, okay, all right.
Yeah.
We're
Like
pause, time out, regroup. Let's repick teams. All of us are on one. They're on the other. Let's go.
teams have auto balanced. Yeah. So they started moving north, but the problem is that Magnus started all the way in Nuln, which, if you remember, was all the way down in the south of the empire.
There was a good amount of territory. He was in like southwestern. Where's that map? Yeah, he was chilling way, way far south. Yeah, no one's down there.
Yeah, no one's all the way down there in the
And
Grey
Prague,
Mountains.
Prague and Kislev are about as
Way
far
up
as you
there.
can be. Yeah, way up there.
Pretty
That's the
much.
whole empire plus.
You gotta imagine, right? Like, there's no interstate highways here. You're
Yeah, you're
marching over like old elven roads, probably through like shitty, dangerous forests.
yeah. It's not even like you're moving quickly. You're trying to stay alive and keep your host. You've got
To be fair, the army was big enough that they weren't really under threat from like a random chaos warband, but still, like moving large bodies of men take time.
the time, it takes resources. You've got to have like a train of supplies that is like 10 times as long as the number of people you have. It's absurd trying to move
Yeah,
a ton of people, especially and that's in modern times. You add that to tech with where the fastest thing you've got is maybe a steam tank. But that's not even
oh, those things
fast,
aren't
right?
fast.
Those are
No.
slow. Like you got a horse. A horse is as fast as you're moving.
Yeah, so they're moving on Prague, and Prague is holding out hope, and they're holding out hope. But it takes so long, and desperation starts to set in. And Nurgle is like, "Ooh, desperation! Don't mind if I do." And
I'll hop
everyone
in there.
catches the yeah, it's like everyone catches the super plague.
Yes. The
Um,
super plague arrives.
yep. Let
He's
me
like, a
correct.
besieged city. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
A plague.
So of course. So eventually, despite best efforts, the city of Prague falls in the year 2302 of the imperial calendar. Um, Now, the really, really tragic thing about this is Prague, not Prague, Prague falls, and like a day later, Magnus's elite cavalry vanguard arrives. They were a day late to have a Rohirrim moment.
They were hustling because that is a
They were
long. Their vanguard was way out in front.
they were schmoovin', but like just
Yeah.
barely missed it. So the city falls, and I'm just gonna hit you with a direct quote from the Warriors of Chaos 7th edition army book because it it was so fucked up. With the fall of Prague, a great black wind blew in from the realm of chaos. Out of the chaos gateway it rolled, boiling over Troll country and into northern Kislev. Through the streets of Prague it howled and screamed, transforming everything it touched. Men and stone bled together to form horrific gargoyles and grotesque living sculptures. Living things melted and reformed as nightmarish parodies made from the flesh of the city itself. Souls in imprisoned torment cried out from the twisted stones of the city. Pillars groaned with voices that once belonged to living flesh. Distorted faces peered out from walls, agonized limbs writhed from the pavements. Prague had become a nightmare incarnate, a taste of what lay ahead for the rest of the old world under the rule of the Chaos Gods.
Oh, so it's not. It didn't just like fall like, oh no, we can't defend anymore. It fell into hell itself, and
Basically,
or
it's,
hell erupted into Prague. Chaos has
yeah,
arrived.
in force. It was not a fun time to be in Prague. Um, so a couple people managed to escape from this and bring worth to the Tsar of Kislev and to Magnus. And the Tsar of Kislev basically is just like, oh shit. And he starts just throwing men together, like throwing an army together in the city of Kislev. The country is named after the city.
Yeah,
And it's like we're talking like those too sick to fight, those too wounded to fight, those that are like 16 years old, those that are like in their 50s.
they're like,
Basically,
can you hold this? You're in. Great. Here's a spear.
basically,
Here's a stick. Strap a knife to it. We gotta fight.
basically. So he's shitting his pants and like mustering in Kislev. Um, Meanwhile, it's said that Magnus, upon hearing of this, wept tears of blood,
Oh,
just
so
like out of anger and grief. And he
he's so
started,
close. His vanguard missed it by a day.
yeah. So Magnus is like, okay, Prague has fallen. We can't save that. Um, we're going to go to Kislev City. We'll regroup there, and apes together strong, more or less.
Smart, right? You've got some humans, some non-chaos infested humans, at least with some defenses, right? Not
Exactly.
a yeah, regroup. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
it's smart move.
Yeah, it is a smart move, which is why Asfarkul sees it coming and also basically races Magnus to Kislev City.
Okay, so
Uh,
it's a race to see if he can sneak his way in
yeah,
before whoever can
uh,
get there first.
pretty much. Now, if you remember the elite vanguard of cavalry from Magnus, they reach Prague a day late, and they see what's happened, and they're all like horrified and then furious. So they basically managed to somehow sneak, not necessarily even sneak past Asfar's army. They somehow missed each other, which Asfarkul had a really, really big army, so I'm a little surprised they missed each other when it was that close. But then again, the cavalry was coming directly from the south. Kislev City is more to like the east, southeast,
Yeah, so they
and
went southeast and they kind of like,
yeah,
let's
probably
just,
kind of like
we're just
something
gonna,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
they
gonna
missed each other.
hang out a little bit. We're gonna pause here before,
Oh no, they
uh,
didn't pause. They
they,
basically they saw that Prague had fallen, and they immediately went, okay, they're probably going for Kislev next, and they basically hit the rear guard of the Chaos troops, just like in a maddened frenzy of rage. They fell upon the rear guard of the Chaos troops, which was basically mutants and beastmen too weak to keep up with the rest of the army, and just completely butchered them. And like it wasn't necessarily a turning point because this was the weakest part of the army, but it is the first like unquestionable anti-chaos coalition dub in the entire war. Which like until this, it's just been like as for cool, it's just been dunking on them.
yeah,
This is
he's
the
just,
first time that he like actually takes an L.
he takes an L. The rear guard gets smashed. Uh, and I assume there is some logistics are a huge part of this. And his
For chaos, chaos doesn't
chop,
get
that's for sure. They don't really have to eat, do they? I mean, they do,
well
but
to
it's
an
more
extent,
of
but they
like,
just like they'll
they'll,
eat their own. They'll eat your babies. They'll
they're
eat
right.
whatever they can off land. They don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit. So it's a lot like logistics for them are a lot easier, I suppose.
Yeah, they
But
basically live off the land on each other.
and each other. That's that armies would be a lot, maybe not more effective, but a lot easier, I suppose, to corral if you don't have to worry so much about fresh water, uh,
You can
non
just drink blood.
baby non baby food, just food that isn't babies.
Exactly.
Yeah. So okay. So his rear guard takes a big ol' L while he's running southeastish towards Kislev. Magnus is coming in from the southwest of Kislev, and it's race. It's on.
It's a race, and unfortunately, this change in the tides doesn't last because Asvor beats Magnus to Kislev.
Oh,
Now, a small force from the dwarves had managed to reach Kislev in time, so they at least had like a core of veteran warriors in there. But Magnus's army is again too late to beat Asvar's armies to Kislev. Um, now, um, Kislev has like thrown up some hasty like outer barricades that they try to man to kind of like slow chaos down. They just get like clowned on immediately. It's like we're right back to as far you're rightly programmed as for cool just dumpsters
dunking,
the Empire and Kislev. Um,
just straight
the dwarves
steamrolling all hastily constructed defenses.
Yeah, the veteran dwarves that had arrived played like a rearguard action to buy the humans time to get into the city walls of Kislev proper. And they're quite a lot of them survive, but they're the last in the city. That's just like because dwarves are badasses.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so Chaos sets up camp and they start like a short siege, but it's not necessarily like a siege in the way that Prague was. This was more we're going to keep you inside until we're ready to like kick down your front door and shoot you in the face.
They're like, well, we also just took a big L out the back, so let's make sure we get all of our people here.
Basically, just
While
like mustering the armies.
yeah, let's muster up, and then kick that door down.
Yeah. So and like just as they're about to like they formed up and they are like quite literally already marching onto like towards the walls, and then Magnus's army shows up. So as for Kul's like, oh shit, and he has to like split his army in two because like part needs to keep attacking Kislev, and part goes to deal with Magnus's force. But this is like a really big army, and you don't have walkie-talkies,
Yes,
so
it's a hot mess.
It's a hot mess. Um, and Magnus basically gets to pull his Rohirrim moment after all. Except no, because I don't care how cumbersome that army is. There are just too many Chaos Warriors.
There's a lot of people, and it's the old like necromancer style of army where you don't really, even if you lose people, you're picking people up along the way versus like you're creating demons out of merged meat, and you've got obelisks that are now talking and marching along with you. So it not only did it get, I imagine, getting bigger as it's steamrolling and picking up like a katamari of chaos. Just
basically, yeah, they're not as good as Katamariing as the vampire accounts are, but Chaos definitely does have a habit of like picking up warbands along the way if you're very successful.
and this dude has been dunking left and right
Oh yeah, he's
from
the
the northern
Everchosen.
wave.
He's got the stamp of approval of all four Chaos
Yeah.
gods. Like this guy, like he's that guy. He is him. So Magnus does try to pull the heroic charge to alleviate the city's siege, but he's beaten back. And similarly, Kislev, the dwarves try to sally forth to help Magnus's army out. They just get clowned on by Asfarkul's bodyguard and forced back into the city with heavy losses.
Okay, so it's not a straight win, but for our chaos friend, but
It's
it's
close.
it's close. It's close to
Like Magnus has set up like a glorious last stand on a hill somewhere, fighting half of the Chaos army. Kislev, which again is being held by a handful of dwarves and like anyone that can hold a stick,
yeah.
is like facing the final siege that Asfarkul himself is preparing to lead. And then Magnus's cavalry force arrives just in time. And third time's the charm, they finally have their Rohirrim moment. And
Are these the guys that gave the only W so far?
yeah, the Vanguard.
Okay, the Vanguard is now the
last to arrive.
The last to arrive. They've been busy butchering chaos from Prague all the way down to Kislev. They're just chopping left and right, and they roll in.
Yeah, and between the throng of a renewed sally from the gates of Kislev, Magnus leading one final exhausted countercharge, and the elite cavalry vanguard pulling a Winged Hussars at Vienna moment. Like you could hear the Sabaton song playing when they charge. As first Cole's force is just called from three flanks, and it just crumbles. As for Cole himself is slain, which is the important thing. Because the Everchosen is the one that like binds all the groups of chaos together. Because you know how much chaos likes to fight.
Yeah.
The Everchosen is the one that binds them. With him dead, the entire army just crumbles and disperses. By the skin of their teeth, Kislev, the dwarves, and the Empire beat back the 12th Everchosen of Chaos. Magnus becomes known as Magnus the Pious, the next emperor of the Empire, leads a bunch of massive reforms, purges chaos from the lands, absolutely clowns on all the warbands, etc., that are like in the forests of the Empire. He legalizes magic. Magic had
Okay.
been banned in the Empire, but part of the reason why they won was because one of the elves, Teclis, one of the greatest wizards ever, basically just like showed up to Magnus's army like, "Hey, I picked up some of your illegal hedge wizards along the way and showed them how to throw fireballs at your enemy. Can you like not hang them?"
Yeah, if you
And
could
Magnus,
not, if you could not burn all these witches, because y'all need some witches right now. You
yeah,
need
yeah, and Magnus was like, "Okay, fine. I guess we need the witches."
fine
So
witches.
the colleges of magic were founded, which are really fun. Might get into those in a future stream. Prague, her city is completely razed and rebuilt. Even that's not enough. It's still a haunted city where the dead do not sleep easy. It's
Okay,
that bad.
it got wrecked,
Yeah.
wrecked.
And Chaos has to retreat to lick its wounds for about 200 years.
That's a. It seems like a good time because we're not. It's not quite 40K timescales, right? So that's a good long
That's a good long
stretch.
while. Yeah, 200 years is pretty good. And then we get to the 13th Everchosen. And if you thought As for Cool was bad, oh, you haven't seen Archeon. That said, I almost forgot, before we get to Archeon, I need to show you something. So, like I said, they're kind of rebooting Warhammer right now, Warhammer the Old World, and
Yes.
they're winding the clock back on that one. Instead of setting it near the end times, they're setting it around this time, the time of the Three Emperors. So instead of
Okay.
having Archeon looming in the distance, we have Asfarkul looming in the distance.
Okay. All right. So we're a couple steps back. We got three emperors. As for cool is coming.
Yeah. And they showed us a map of Kislev, which is a really interesting map, because the one they showed us is this one. And what they explicitly said is that Kislev now stretches eastward, all the way beyond into the mountains of Morn and the Great Plains eastward. Like you can see this little bear here.
Yeah, yeah, he's chilling over on that side of the
Yeah,
mountains. All right.
yeah, that's a Kislev thing. I'm going to quickly go back to the map because basically what they're saying is Kislev extends into the mountains of Morn. So Kislev is like proper Russia sized here.
Okay, yeah, it's you're
Roughly,
you're popping over 2+ mountain ranges.
yeah, so Kislev's massive.
Okay.
But then if we look at the map of well, technically it's old Warhammer, but it's like later in the timeline because Warhammer the Old World was basically the prequels.
Right.
Instead of this, Kislev stops at the mountains. As for Cool, basically took Russia and chopped like 90% off of it.
Of it off, yeah.
Yeah, like Kislev is like a shadow of its former self at this point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. I mean, that's a huge chunk of its landmass is gone. Right. Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of space on that side of the mountains that they used to own.
yeah, I do need to qualify that by saying it's not explicitly stated as for cool caused that. But come on, man, if you're not making the Great War of Chaos the thing that completely destroys Kislev, except for like a couple cities left,
That it's
what else is going to do
yeah.
that?
What else caused it? Right. That
Yeah, like you need to
seems
give Asfarkul the big dub. Like he deserves it. Like bro fought hard.
he straight up stomped several gigantic cities into nothing.
Yeah. Okay, keeping an eye on the time, we have 55 minutes left, and I would really like to touch on Malekith as well. So
Yes.
I am still going to tell you about Archeon because he's a baller, but I'm going to be a little quick about it, which
Let's
on the
do it.
one hand I'm kind of sad about because he really deserves his time in the spotlight, but also I think I can summarize him a bit more. So Archeon, the Everchosen of Chaos, um, the 13th and final Everchosen. Now Archeon was born in 2390 Imperial calendar, and I do need to throw up, unfortunately, a content warning for sexual assault here. So if that's something that you don't want to listen to, skip ahead a minute or so. But yeah, with that content warning out of the way, uh, his mother was assaulted by a Norscan warrior, basically imagine Vikings of Chaos, and then promptly died in childbirth when Archeon was born. And his dad just could not stand being around this kid for fairly obvious reasons. So he was, as a baby, basically abandoned at a temple of Sigmar, the guy with the really cool golden warhammer, where he was taken in and raised by a priest to become an extremely zealous warrior priest of Sigmar. His name at this point was not Archeon the Everchosen, obviously. His name was Diederik Kastner, which, like, as a Dutch person, quite familiar with a lot of German names, and a lot of their names are very German as well. To me, this kind of reads like if Attila the Hun in his childhood was called like Derek Cabinet or something. So like, yeah, calling yourself Archeon was definitely the smart move.
Yeah, yeah. Like I see perhaps why you went with Archeon.
Yeah,
It's a step up. Step up.
Step up from Derek Cabinet for sure. So he was raised to be this incredibly zealous priest, and unfortunately, he was a little bit too zealous. And he kind of had an Icarus moment where he was like, I need to study chaos to understand it so I can just like beat its ass harder. Oh no, the horrible, evil ancient texts I read about chaos to destroy chaos have corrupted my brain with chaos. Um, as you do.
There's a theme, as it does, as it does. That's sort of it seems to be an unavoidable thing. How can you fight that which you do not know, and then how do you know and not become that which you want to fight?
Yeah. So he read the prophecies of, I believe it was Necrodamus the Insane, top of my head, which prophesied that he specifically would become the Everchosen of Chaos that would finally destroy the world. And that's like, I mean, that's gonna mess you up,
That's
right?
gonna
Like,
mess you up. That's a hard. You can't just be like, "Hey, I'm just gonna read a little bit of this chaos text." Oh, I'm the chosen one.
yeah,
Well,
it's like,
shit.
imagine like being a like fanatic Catholic and then just like reading Bible too, when it says, "Oh, by the way,
You're Jesus.
John,
Like, good
like
luck.
not
Good luck.
even Jesus, like Johnny Lawrence from like Norfolk, Virginia. You are the Antichrist, and you will destroy Earth and
Yes.
bring about rapture."
And you're like,
That's gonna mess you up.
well, that's a lot to ask of
Like,
me, but I
like
guess.
here's your social security number and your mother and just maiden name to prove it, motherfucker.
Yeah,
So
and I'm reading this in the chaos book. That's gonna freak me out a little bit.
yeah, so
And
I would
probably start believing some of the things that it's saying.
Yeah, so I would say that Archaon had a very reasonable and level-headed response to this, by which I mean that he absolutely mauled it, called his old gods a bunch of liars, burnt the temple to the ground, killed every remaining living member of his old family, and then went north to start his ultimate fetch quest of doom. He was like, my old gods fucking lied to me,
A
gods
whole
of my dad, Chaos Gods, you're still assholes. I hate all of you. I'm going to destroy this world out of spite.
First,
Which
I'm gonna wreck this. I'll come for you later.
I think that was kind of his idea, but I it still seems kind of like I'm going to do what you want out of spite towards you. Like that is a level of seething that Perturabo could learn from.
That's he's he's a bit upset, I guess you could say
Yeah,
it. At all this.
Tad, his jimmies have been like ever so slightly rustled.
Rustled. Yeah, there's some rustling. Okay.
Yeah. So he goes forth northward, and the prophecies basically said, "Hey, you must collect the six evil MacGuffins of chaos to become the ultimate Everchosen."
He's like, got
Um,
it. If you could tell me where all my the MacGuffins are, that'd be great.
Pretty much. The first one that he went for was the eternally burning Mark of Chaos. So Marks of Chaos are both a pretty good Warhammer Fantasy strategy game, kind of sort of like the Total War Warhammer games, except a lot more linear. They were quite fun. If like strategy games, worth checking out if you can find it. But also the like buffs and seals of approval from the Chaos Gods. Um,
All right.
this one would be approval from all 4 of the gods. So it's not just a Mark of Khorne or a Mark of Slaanesh. It's like the buy one get 3 others free.
Oh, okay. So you got one there. You're in. Like they're big fans of you if you got this mark.
Yeah, all of them.
All right.
So for this one, he set off to Naggaroth, which was, if you remember from our old map, this is basically in our North America, Canada-ish area.
Yeah. The your Great Lakes are sort of towards the south. This is sort of like what do I want to call it? Wait, which? Oh, okay. I see it now. That's the Sea of Malice.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so
No.
this is
This is good. This is good. So that we're heading over to we're crossing the pond. We're chilling over here in Naggaroth.
yeah, and we're specifically going to the altar of ultimate darkness.
Well,
which
that is where you go if you're looking for this.
Yeah, and so on his way there, because this is like Dark Elven Heartland, so he couldn't go here on his own. He gathered a small warband called the Swords of Chaos, which basically become his elite bodyguard. They stick with him through and through. I think you can field them on the old tabletop game. They're quite cool. So they go with him into Dark Elf Heartland, and they find this altar where there are hordes of like horrid creatures. We don't know what kind of creatures because in this altar it was pitch black.
It's like
Not see a
Vanta
thing.
Black, right? Like you can't
Yeah,
see
it's like
anything.
it's like you may not enter the altar of darkness on behalf of Anish Kapoor, like that level. They tried to lit a torch and it was snuff out.
Okay.
And and so like Archaon was the only one of these hardened warriors of chaos that were literally serving the 4 super satans that was not afraid of the dark.
All right. Okay.
So he went in there on his own in pitch black and he just bodied hundreds of these creatures without being able to see them. He sacrificed all their hearts on this altar, and all of the gods were just like, "Yeah, you know what? That's pretty cool.
That was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah, like,
That's
we
what
like
I'm
that.
talking
Nice.
about. Okay.
Hell yeah." Like that's kind of entrepreneurial go-getter grind set that we like to see around here.
That took a lot of effort. You don't just you gotta get out hearts. You gotta crack ribs. Like that's a lot of work.
Yeah, so he displayed his grind set of grinding his enemies into dust, and the Chaos Gods gave him his first artifact, the Eternal Mark of Chaos. From here, he had to set out to somewhere else. We don't quite know where. To do this, he stole a Dark Elf ship. Dark Elf ships are like, well, not continent sized, but they're like, basically imagine a entire castle built out of iron, put on an ironclad in the sea, and then pulled by giant sea drakes.
Okay. Okay.
The
So you're
black arts of the Dark Elves are like no joke.
okay. So we're talking like a solid city sized ship being.
To be entirely fair, the books don't specify it as a black ship, a black arc, but they do say it's an I think it was something like a dark elf ship made of metal pulled by a sea drake.
That's pretty big, right? You got
Yeah,
to
it's like
see.
that is generally the description given to the black arcs. So I choose to believe it because I think it's cool if he just steals an entire like floating fortress, basically.
Nice voting fortress. He's
Yeah.
got an army. He's got an artifact. He's ready to roll,
Yeah.
and he's
And
going
so
somewhere next.
yeah, and where he's going is into the Average Games Workshop. And by that I mean is that he goes to a place that has never been touched by moon or sun, where he finds a bunch of basement dwelling incels that have never seen the light of day.
Yeah, so Average Games
Listen, we're
Workshop. Yeah,
Warhammer nerds, we get to take shots at our own.
I'm in a basement right now.
Very valid. So basically, he goes into an unnamed city from like the dawn of time or whatever to find the tomb of Morcar, the first Everchosen, if you remember.
Right. Okay.
And why he goes here is to acquire the armor of Morcar. For 6 days and 6 nights, he had to fight through these basement dwelling creatures that lived in the city until it was raised and he could find the tomb. He found the tomb with the armor in it. the problem was that Morcar still possessed the spirit of that, Morcar's spirit still possessed that armor. So the armor animated and started fighting Archaon. And it was one hell of a battle, because this is Everchosen versus Everchosen to be.
Yeah.
So, quite a fight, until, because you gotta remember, before he became Archaon, Archaon was a very fanatical priest of Sigmar, which meant that he'd learned the language of Sigmar, the guy that killed Morcar.
Right.
So what he does is he spits a curse at the armor in Sigmar's language, and that gives it enough pause for him to strike it so hard the spirit is banished.
Now that is a good swing right there. If you can hit something hard, you knock the spirit out of it.
Yeah, imagine you're 3,000 years old, and some fucker waltzes into your tomb in the catacombs of Paris to steal your armor, and you're trying to tell him to get off your lawn, and he just calls you a pussy in Aramaic.
He's just hold on, wait a second.
Yeah, and then he's already knocked the daylight out of you.
That's all he needed. He just needed. That's fantastic.
And let it never be said that a degree in linguistics isn't useful. So he managed to claim the armor of Morcar, his second artifact. The third was the Eye of Shirian, which is the third eye that we saw in his helm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that gives you prophetic powers. And
always good to have.
Yeah,
always good to have.
It's kind of like a two-piece combo kit. This is the first piece. He'd get the second piece later. So on its own, it's just kind of like a necklace. It gives you some flashes of the future, not that strong yet. But he still had to fight a Chaos Dragon for it.
Okay.
Chaos Dragons are cool.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess with them.
Wow. Okay. I'm seeing, I don't even know how many mouths. There's a lot of orifices. Too many. There's too many mouths. That's a very good description of this.
At some point, I hope that I get to tell you about Galadoch, one of the greatest of Chaos Dragons, because he is a baller and I love him, and his miniature is fucked up in all the right ways. But long story short, this dragon guarded the Eye of Shirian as its most prized gem in its hoard. Basically, imagine Lovecraftian Smaug and the Arkenstone.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So Archaon just waltzed up to him and started fighting for it. This thing vored him whole. I mean, with that many mouths, that's not too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there's mouths coming at you from all angles.
Yeah, but Archaon was wearing the armor of Morcar, so that did nothing to him, and he did the really cool fantasy trope of just cutting himself out from the inside.
Yep.
And that let him claim the Eye of Shirian.
There he goes. Cut his way out. That you gotta remember that if you're really any sort of dragon, is always check the armor. Just because before you swallow it, maybe just peel it like a tin can before.
Yeah, make sure it might give you a nasty case of indigestion.
Yeah, you don't know, or squeeze it like a Popeye spinach situation where you just gotta pop it open. Because otherwise you don't know where that armor's been, how old it is, who's infused it.
Mm-hmm. So that was the Eye of Shirian. And next up is, I think, was your first reaction to when I mentioned Archaon, you looked up an image of him and you was like, holy shit, what is he writing?
Yes. That was an amazing photo. Yes, look at that fucking horse demon. It's got
Gorgard, the steed of the apocalypse.
Yeah, that's an apocalypse steed for you right there. Yep. He's got fire in his eyes and his nose. He's got horns coming out of his foreleg. I'm going to call that a foreleg. I don't know what the bottom half of a leg of a horse of an Armageddon steed is called.
That's right. So, would you believe me if I said this part of the fetch quest was a stealth mission?
See, that's not where I would have guessed. Well, then again, I've played video games, and trying to tame a horse usually involves sneaking up on it, according to every sort of everything Legend of Zelda has taught me is you have to be quiet trying to get to a horse.
So basically what happened is this horse was held by a demon prince in the realm of chaos.
Okay.
You have to go into hell for this.
If you're going to get a hell horse, go to the source.
Yeah, exactly. fresh range, organic, locally produced
Yeah.
heathenry. So Archeon and his warband battled their way into the household of the demon prince of Agraman, uh, fighting off the guards that protected his impenetrable palace. So the first part of this stealth mission was the kind of stealth of like leave no one alive to alert to your presence is also stealth. But then Archeon had to sneak his way inside the menagerie, which he did by clinging to the bottom of a creature that was part man, part mammoth, and part insect. I don't know how that works either. That sounds like some Clan Mulder shit,
Yeah,
but it
that's
worked.
mammoth.
Mammoth,
Oh,
insect, and man.
mammoth, insect, and God, is it like a lot of furry legs?
It's I'm imagining some Cronenberg nonsense, probably.
Yeah, I imagine
Um,
it's a human bottom, but the rest is mammoth.
oh god, just like two regular sized legs trying to
Yeah,
balance.
trying. It's very wobbly. It's a very
Oh god.
wobbly scenario.
And that
And like,
Archeon, it's explicitly stated he clung to the bottom, so it's just like hanging
he's
on to
just
the
holding
leg.
on to the like. He's holding on to like the ankle of like this very normal sized human leg carrying a
And
mammoth.
he's like, "What's smacking me in the face? Oh
Yeah.
god."
Oh God.
Okay, so and just a quote from the book itself. It said that this menagerie contained every imaginable creature and more besides. They pulled the Lovecraft horrors man was not meant to comprehend on us, although I'm pretty sure Archaon at this point could easily comprehend them.
He's seen a lot at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, he's seen some shit. So he tracks down Dorgar by the stink of sulfur in the stables of the Demon Prince, and like I'm not sure how badly that horse needs to stink for its sulfur stench to stand out in hell.
In hell and
In
in a stable. Like it's not. It doesn't. Those are two
so
places are notoriously not the best smelling.
so like gotta be a stinky horse. Nurgle's gotta love it, but he managed to find it and he jumps on it. And Dorgar started to try and like burst into flame and shapeshift to throw him off, but eventually Archeon broke the steed and basically just like bolted out of the stables on top of it. So Grand Theft Horsey complete.
He's got
That's
a horse. He's got he's about to have. Does he have? Looks like he's. Well, no, he hasn't have the other part of his eye yet. He's got the
uh
first part right.
yeah. So
All right.
next up, because we've got armor, we've got a steed, we've got a talisman, we've got a blessing, but we don't have a weapon yet. We need
Yeah,
to
I was gonna
fix it.
say we need something to fight with.
So the next thing that he's going for is the Slayer of Kings. This
Okay.
was the sword of Vangal, which was the second Everchosen. He bound a greater demon by the name of Uzul into it, who has gone insane with rage due to his millennia of imprisonment.
And yeah, and a
So
blade, and it's clearly not been very active for a bit now because that was the second one, and we're on 13.
yeah,
So he's
so he
real
and his
bored.
absolutely. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that actually, because you're onto something here. So he and his followers the Swords of Chaos battled their way onto the Chimera Plateau, which, as its name implied, is just full of like pleasant and good and fun things. Um, just kidding, it's full of chimeras. Chimeras, sorry.
No, you
Um,
that not what you want to be fighting.
yeah, definitely. But this is Archaon, so he doesn't give a shit. He just beats his way through them. And as he stands upon the Chimera Plateau, looking down on the world, vowing to conquer all of it, the mountain behind him turns around. Like he thought what was behind him was a mountain. It wasn't. What we have there is Kraken Rock the Black, the father of the dragon ogres.
Okay.
If you remember,
Yeah.
as far Cool's boy, the guy with
This is
lightning,
fantastic. Yes.
this Kraken Rock is that guy's dad.
All right.
Like
So
he's
he
the
just.
father of the species, mountain sized.
This is fantastic. Fantastic meme, by the way. Here,
Thank you.
this is beautiful.
Thank you. So Archeon is like, okay, listen, I have main character privileges. I'm a named character. I'm not gonna beat that. So it's time for another stealth mission. So his entire warband, Archeon included, of course, shat their pants. Nurgle and Slash were very pleased. but they snuck up past Kraken Rock, and they found that clutched to its chest, and it's like, I don't know, forest-sized hands or some shit, probably. The sword was held, the Slayer of Kings. So Archaon's strongest companion, Prince Ograx, lifted up like a single one of his claws so that Archaon could grab the sword. And like remember, like with the Kolek Sun Eater, one of his claws was the size of your torso, and this is that thing's dad.
Yeah, right. This
Like,
is the
this has
daddy
got to be like
dragon.
car-sized or something.
Yeah, right. He's this dude. He's lifting up a small bus.
Yeah, like this dude got his fucking reps in at the gym. Like he did not skip arm day.
He is not
So
skipping any days.
yeah, so Archaon manages to grab the sword. But, you know, this sword has a greater demon in it that's quite bloodlusted by millennia of boredom. So it immediately goes, hey, do you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? Eeeeee! And the sword just
The
starts screeching like this, and everyone's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, because Kraken Rock starts waking up.
Yeah,
And,
there's a
like,
mountain
I don't
dragon
care.
that we're
Yeah, it's
stealing
like,
from.
I don't care how many cool artifacts you have, Archeon, you are not beating a mountain.
Yeah,
So Archeon thinks quickly, and it's like, oh, this thing must be hungry. And he just like turns to Prince Ograx, that's like helping me out, one of his oldest and most trusted companions.
he's like, hey, buddy. Yep.
Shanks him in the chest. Just it's like, hey, thanks for your help. You are relieved of duty. Stab.
We had a good run.
Yeah, you done good, buddy. Time for retirement. So he stabs his friend in the heart, and the royal blood sates the bloodlust of the Slayer of Kings, which lets him sheathe the sword. It's still like if he pulls it out, you can't really sheathe it back until the battle is done. And the sword does try to get him to like kill his friends on occasion, but he does manage to get away with it.
I mean, as a demonic infused sword will do, demonically bound sword. It will make you kill your friends. Just
Absolutely,
that's a hazard of the job.
as you do. So that is 5 out of the 6 artifacts for those who've been keeping track at home. The 6th one, Archeon couldn't find. He was looking for literal decades. Eventually, this name may be familiar to you. Belacor tipped him off to where it might be. Does that ring a bell at all?
That sounds familiar.
Belacor is also a demon prince in 40k. He is the first demon prince, I believe, in both fantasy and 40k.
Oh, so he's just like, hey, I've been around. I've seen some things.
Yeah, and basically Bellacor's entire thing in Warhammer Fantasy is that he is like the king of seething and molding, and with how much I've already used those words in the stream, like him taking home the gold is impressive.
Yeah. There's been a lot of seething going on.
Yeah, so his entire gimmick is I want to become Everchosen to like gain the favor of the gods as a demon. I don't want these fucking humans to take that privilege. So he keeps trying to possess the Everchosen to basically become the Everchosen. So he's like, I'm going to tell this idiot where to find the Crown of Domination, the final artifact, so that I can steal it from him.
Perfect. Yeah, get him to do the work for you. Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly, and Be'lakor is very smart. We got to give it to him. Like he's a master puppet master. If you want to learn more about Be'lakor, the Lorebeard stream on Mordheim talks about him quite a bit. It's really cool. So Be'lakor goes, "Hey, you want to look in the first shrine of chaos, which you can find in the World's Edge Mountains, which were the mountains to the east of Kislev and the Empire on the world map. They're the longest mountain range in at least the old world, if not the entire world." I don't know exactly where the first shrine is, but it's somewhere on a frozen peak.
Yeah, it is quite the mountain range.
Yeah. So Be'lakor leads Archaon here with Dorgar carrying him over the difficult terrain. And Archaon enters the first shrine to chaos, where each of the gods has a final test for Archaon. Nurgle basically just like shows up wearing a suit, just a suit and tie, sitting down across the office desk and going like, "Hey, you're here for the job interview. What's the last time you bathed? Do you know what soap is? No? Good. You're hired. Congratulations, you're world's stinkiest man." um, Chinch threw up a crystal labyrinth and was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna trick you! I'm gonna trick you! I'm gonna confuse you!" Yeah. So Archeon just fucking blindfolded himself and operated purely on vibes to get through Chinch's crystal maze.
That's the
Which
way to just vibe based
it's a
navigation.
feat.
That's
I
that's a
believe.
feat.
Yeah, I believe the crystal maze is also part of like Chinch's like realm of chaos. So he basically just walked through Chinch's core defenses as a test on vibes alone.
Now
Which,
that
like,
is that is an impressive feat right there.
yeah. And then next was Slanesh, who offered Archeon a 90 discount on their OnlyFans. Archeon just looked at her and went like, "I'm no fab. I practice semen retention." Thought. Uh, uh, and Slanesh's like, "Are you sure? 95%, just for you. First month free. Be gone." Thought. And he
He,
just resisted all of these pleasures, which um, you might think that, the Prince of Pleasure wouldn't be happy that someone kept denying pleasure, but he was doing it to get the bigger pleasure of being the Everchosen, so
yeah, he knows
congratulations.
he knew what he was there for.
Yeah, exactly. Now, can you guess what Korn's trial might have been?
Is it blood? Is
It,
there blood involved?
there is blood involved, specifically a bloodthirster. Korn is a very
Oh.
simple boy. Um, Korn, and like I looked this up, they explicitly described this fight as happening on a narrow causeway surrounded by hellfire. Archeon had to 1v1 a greater demon of Korn, a bloodthirster, which looks like a giant Satan, and it's very blatantly just like a Mines of Moria Balrog.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It is straight out of.
it's
That's
straight out
fantastic.
of Lord of the Rings. Except that Archeon is cooler than Gandalf, because Gandalf like fell down like a little bitch,
He just like
whereas
fell and
Archeon,
then tried to fight or something. No, we don't even
something
get to
like
see
that.
it.
No, it's like um, the Virgin Gandalf like has the greater demon use its whip on him to like drag him down by the ankles. The
Yeah.
Chad Archeon strangles the demon with his own
Oh,
whip.
there you go.
I'm not kidding. He
Yeah, he
actually
strangled him.
I I
That's
just
how
want
you
to
do
point
it.
this out. He strangled a demon. Demons do not need to breathe, and he strangled one.
That's that is some strength. That's some inner strength and outer
That
strength.
is Yeah, it's like I'd like to think that it wasn't even actually him killing the demon because it doesn't breathe. This was just Korn going like, "Damn, that is violence with a capital V." Okay, yeah, I like this. Yeah, yeah, you can go through.
Yeah,
Oh,
you win. Go
cool.
ahead.
That
You
was
know he
basically
doesn't
like,
need to breathe. Doesn't matter.
yeah, it's
Busy
like this
choking
is
him.
this is about sending a message. It's like this is like Korn was the dungeon master that doesn't set the HP for the boss fight. He just like waits until the players do something cool enough that makes him go like, "Okay, yeah, you killed
Yeah,
it."
yeah, you won. That was it.
Yeah. So Archeon goes on through into the very simple first shrine to chaos. He finds the crown of domination. And then, because the chaos gods are massive trolls, they make Be'lakor crown him the new Everchosen. He puts the crown of domination on his head. Be'lakor takes the Eye of Shurian and with a touch fuses it to the crown of domination to activate the full set bonus. And with that, Archeon became our 13th Everchosen, who originally led a storm of chaos to destroy the Empire, who then, that was like a player involved campaign where you could send in battle reports to affect the outcome. The result of which was that Archeon got his ass kicked by Grimgor Ironhide of the Orcs, so we ignored that. And that was eventually retconned into the end times where Archeon did successfully destroy the world.
He destroys
First try.
first try. Well done. He deserved it because he did a lot of work. He put in the legwork. He murdered his friend.
Yeah, he went on the fetch quest. He did all of the side quests.
Above and beyond. Really.
Absolutely. That was diligent dedication to the
Yeah.
cause of wrecking shit.
Wrecking shit of I'm gonna crack the world.
Yeah. And that is our discussion on the Warriors of Chaos and the Everchosen, the parallels to Abaddon and the Black Crusades abound. We have about 25 minutes left. I would still really like to do Malekith of the Dark Elves because he's really cool. But before we go to that, Any questions so far? Any thoughts you'd like to share?
Oh no, this has been absolutely fascinating. This is what I was hoping we could do. Is I occasionally like to have fantastic info dumps, and this has been that and more. That's that
Mhm.
and memes, which is really what I'm here for. So
Hell yeah.
so thank you. Oh, wow.
I'm very, very glad to hear it. I'm having a great time so far. This has been just such a joy to put
Yeah,
together.
this
Like,
has been a blast for me as well.
absolutely. So with that said, I'm going to be using our last 20 minutes to talk about Malekith, the Witch King, not of Angmar, of Naggaroth. And I'm just going to start with my thesis statement. And my thesis statement is that the next image is the single hardest image in any Games Workshop piece of material that I have ever seen.
Okay.
I saw this one as a kid, and this specific image is what hooked me for life.
All right.
Look at this motherfucker.
Okay.
Look at him. What a baller.
That's hard. I'm not gonna lie. That's
This
like
goes.
that goes hard. Look, he's got. I don't even know what's going. Like the background has like blurry cities of chaos. There's dragons. It looks like flying. There's oh god, and they're so it's so dark. He's so dark.
It's
He's
almost like he's a dark elf.
yeah. It's almost like he's made of dark. No, it's
Mhm.
this goes hard. This
This
is a
goes so hard.
fantastic. This is a fantastic image.
I saw this as a kid, and I was like, okay, I don't know who this guy is or what his deal is, but
But
I want one.
I want one, and I want to know more.
Yeah, I love this image so much. It's so cool. I love the color palette
Oh
as well.
man,
Honestly, if you didn't know better, you could mistake the background for like fucking Kamara or a Hive City or something.
it could be the background reminds me of so many different. Oh god, so many different like fantasy settings, and some of the there's just this is a fantastic and this is just fantastic look. I'm sorry, I'm just staring at all the details here. I didn't even see the like hellhound, but it also kind of reminds me of a dinosaur to the
Oh, the one
right.
in
Yeah, in
oh
the
yeah,
back there.
that's cold ones. Hang on, I'm actually
Those are
currently painting up my
oh,
pile
you're
of sheens.
painting
I'm
one?
painting those up at the moment. Hang
Yes,
on.
bust it out.
So these are like mid being painted, so they don't look super sexy at the moment. Because it always takes like a good wash to get them to look the best. But these are
Yeah. A little bit to your oh, there we go. Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
kind of to properly focus,
Freddy
camera.
said focus almost. Take it back like 1 inch. Yeah, that's pretty good. Those are pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool. I really like the dark elves.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay,
This
so
is solid.
yeah, they're really cool. They have such a great aesthetic. So um we're gonna have to wind the clock like way back, like
All right.
way back. So for context, Archeon was crowned as the 13th Everchosen in Imperial Calendar 2519 at 129 years old, if I'm not mistaken. What we're going to talk about now is like 4,500 years before, before the birth of Sigmar or the founding of the Empire. So minus 4,500 at least. We're
Right.
going back
We're
like
like almost
seven
30,000?
I think
7,000.
I think 7,000 years, 4,500. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right. It was like 2,519 is when Archeon was crowned.
Got it. Okay. So
And
we're like we're rolling back a good 7 and
7,000.
change.
Yeah. Okay. And we're looking at Ulthuan, which is the Atlantis that you mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah.
Uh, don't pay any attention to those like big red fault lines on the northwest. I'm sure nothing will happen with them later.
Yeah, big red lines on a map. Nothing, usually happens around those.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is Ulthuan, the homeland of the elves, and everything is garbage. because the Chaos Gates have burst open, the old ones have buggered off, and Chaos has just been spilling demons everywhere. Like, you got to be the Doomslayer just to survive a grocery run at this point.
Okay, it is not good. It's not the good times.
It's very not the good times, especially because before this, the elves lived in like a idyllic, peaceful society. They were fighting bloodthirsters with like hunting bows and boar spears. Like it was no, no, mas. It's not going to go well. So up comes this absolute giga chad by the name of Anarion.
Okay.
Anarion, the defender of Ulthuan.
He's got the
And
matching sword and shield.
yeah,
And
he's
the
a
winged
pacifism.
helm. That's Brett's boss. Look at that.
Oh yeah, the high elves have a lot of like the pointy helms, and like their lords tend to have them winged. They look really cool. This is a little bit later in his life, but basically, I believe he starts fighting back. Well, everyone's fighting back against the demons, but he's really good at it.
All right.
But still, like he's good at it, but he's at this point just a guy. I don't care how good you are. If endless hordes of demons are pouring in, you're going to be outnumbered and outclassed, especially when you're fighting with hunting weapons.
Yeah.
So he pleads to the gods for aid because he is, unlike the God Emperor of Man, not a moderator of r/atheism. He pleads to the elves for aid, and he hears nothing. Now, for a little bit of context, the elven pantheon in Warhammer Fantasy is very similar to the old Eldar pantheon 40k. We have Asurian, we have Vol, we have Cain. Funnily enough, the only one missing in Fantasy is Chegarak, the Laughing God, or Kakarah. I don't know how you pronounce it. Kakarot. The Laughing God of the Eldar has a trickster god equivalent. I think it's Loek or something, but he isn't in this pantheon. That's like the only real difference, and or the only one that's missing in the Elven pantheon. The elves have a lot more too. Aisha's here as well, etc. So a lot of similarities.
Okay.
So he sacrifices gods to the animals, and he hears nothing. So he basically says, Asurian, please, anything to help my people. I will throw myself in your holy flames and sacrifice myself if you will help us. And he hears nothing. So he's like, all right, well, a promise is a promise. And he yeets himself into the flames. And what do you think happens?
I want to say that there were some red lines on a map that were that may now be becoming important.
Oh, no, what are you talking about? Those big red fault lines, those aren't important at all. No, what happens is that he turns himself extra crispy. He burns hard. And he burns, and he burns, and then he stops burning. And with sheer force of will, he manages to claw himself through the other end of the flames. And he manages to get out. And I think he was basically unscathed. More than that, he is now like filled with new purpose. If you want to be charitable, you can say that the spirit of Asurion itself is now directly reflected in Anarion. If you want to be less charitable, Asurion has possessed him.
Okay, fair enough. So he's and what I guess can you what's the one line, what's the elevator pitch for this god?
Asurion is he's like the Arch-Creator god of the High Elf pantheons. He's like the head honcho of their
Okay, of their
entire
pantheon.
pantheon. Yeah, so it's like imagine being possessed by Odin, more or less.
Like an like an Odin, Zeus, the big man on campus has possessed.
He's not necessarily the war god, but he is still like the head honcho, so he still has tremendous power.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So basically Anarion, like with this, basically goes forth and just starts dumpstering demons. However, he starts kind of like suffering from the same problem that the God Emperor in 40k had, which is like wherever I am, I'm bodying shit.
Wherever
but I'm
I'm
just
not
one guy.
Yeah, one dude can't be everywhere
One
at
dude
once.
can't be everywhere at once. So it's kind of like it becomes very much a situation of like winning the battle after battle after battle, but you're still losing the war.
Right.
So a buddy of his, Calidor, proposes a plan. And what Kalidor says, because Kalidor is like the greatest wizard ever. He is like the guy for magic, the arch nerd. And he goes, "Yo, so the gates to the north and south are basically just pouring magic into the world and pouring magic into the world, and that's what's allowing the demons to be here. What if we like poke a hole in the world that lets all the magic back out, or like traps it, more or less?
All right, let's
Basically, what if we drain magic from the world?"
yeah, suck all the magic somewhere else.
Inarion hates this idea. Partially because he's a hothead, but there is also a decent case to be made that, well, he's possessed by an elven god. That god needs magic to like be able to do that.
So he's
So
not
if
the biggest fan of this plan.
yeah, so like if the magic goes, then the god might go too.
Okay.
So Anarion like starts like arguing with Kalidor. And he might have changed his mind, if not for a messenger basically bursting open doors like, "Anarion, my lord, uh, your wife has been giga murdered by just all of the demons. I'm terribly sorry, sir. Just body parts everywhere. It was quite horrible." So obviously Anarion takes this extremely well.
Yeah,
Um,
possessed husbands are known to do.
yeah, so what he does, he flies into a massive rage, and he says that he's going to go to I think it was the Blighted Isle, to the Shrine of Cain, which, for context, is the bloody-handed god of murder. If I'm not mistaken, that was his
All right.
title. And he's going to the Shrine of Cain, and everyone there just like turns white in the face because it can only mean one thing. He is going to draw the sword of Cain from his resting place. Like, remember all those artifacts that Archeon went to hunt
Yeah.
down?
Yeah.
Jump change, baby shit compared to the sword of Cain.
Just
Like,
hot garbage.
yeah,
This
like
sword is not messing
trash. Like,
around.
what Best Buy dollar store garbage are you wearing? Like,
You
no good.
cracked the world with this stuff, but
Yeah,
nothing. Got nothing
but
on
no.
this sword.
Well, there is quite a big but. As in, if you draw the sword, you're basically dooming your entire bloodline for eternity.
Ah, okay.
They all know this, and also because at this point, Anarion is kind of like the founding father of the elves by saving their ass repeatedly. You could make a case that he is quite literally going to damn entire like all of Elvenkind for this.
Okay. All right.
That's more like metaphorical, allegorical, but definitely his entire bloodline.
Yeah. So,
So
all right.
everyone
So
else is like, "Calm down, maybe don't do this," and he's like,
maybe
"I don't give a
don't
shit.
ruin.
I
Ev-
shut the fuck up. I am hopping on my dragon. I am getting that thing, and I am stabbing the gods. I don't fucking care."
I will.
So
I'm getting that sword, and I'm fighting God. Let's go. Let's
yeah, he
go.
is like, "Fuck it. I'm on my anime protagonist arc. Like I'm on my final fantasy shit here."
I'm going
So
to stab the gods. Let's go.
yeah, he goes to the Isle, and on his way there, the gods are whispering in his ear, "Don't do this, you fucking like dipshit. Why? No, this is a terrible idea." The gods themselves are like pleading with him to not do this. The ghost of his dead wife shows up to tell him not to do this,
And
and
he's
he
like,
pulls
uh
the
huh,
sword out
pulling
anyway.
it anyway. It's mine.
Yeah, it's like, "Sweetheart, I'm sorry. I'm too angry to listen to you."
Even though I got angry because of your death,
Yeah,
uh, I'm can't too
I'm
angry.
I'm I'm doing this for you, so I'm not listening to you.
I want to honor the memory of you, even though I'm ignoring your direct wishes that you are expressing to me from beyond the grave.
Certified man PM. So he pulls out the Sword of Cain, and at this point, remember how he got possessed by Asurion?
Yes. Yes.
You can add Cain to that too. At this point, it's like basically there are two wolves inside of you. One is Asurion, the other is Cain. So that's just like going to go just swimmingly for him, obviously. Basically, his entire like what
Yes.
personality he still had left is just completely erased as
Gone.
he just becomes an avatar of like two gods simultaneously.
Okay. Yeah. He is no longer
He's
really
just
a person. He is the manifestation of two gods on the world with
basically
with a baller sword
with the baller sword.
and a dragon. He also has a
And
dragon.
a dragon. Yeah, I think it was in Draupnir. The name of the dragon. Yeah, in Draupnir. So, basically, all of the most bitter, PTSD-riddled, war-ravaged elves that are like, yeah, you're right, victory no matter the cost, flock to Anarion, and he starts building his kingdom in Naggaroth in the north, which is, if I grab the map for you, this area roughly-ish.
All right, over in the Naggaroth. Yeah, I see it there.
Yeah, Naggaroth. Yeah. So he goes to build his kingdom because like the demons are still pouring forth at this point, but like
Yeah.
occasionally he just like with the sword of Cain and the possession of Ashurian, occasionally he's able to beat them so hard that they actually retreat for like 30 years or something, which in elf years and demon years is nothing, but it's still like it's enough time to like build a kingdom if you
You
have
can
it.
build stuff up, right?
Yeah,
It's not nothing.
yeah,
You've got a whole civilization. You can pop up some fortifications, get some
exactly.
bakery going.
Exactly. So eventually, in one of his many fights with demons, he fights a Slaneshi host, and he manages to save a prisoner from them, the elven Cirrus Morathi, um, who is saved by Anarion from the Slaneshi warband. Um, and here, this is where you can kind of like start taking two interpretations of the lore. Am not I have like read through my direct primary material for this. I am not able to read every single book on Warhammer Fantasy. So part of this is like secondhand knowledge, mainly again from the Lorebeard stream, but Andy Lowe wrote for Games Workshop. I trust him with
That
this.
seems like a fair source. Yeah.
Yeah. They either you can say that Morathi was just like a horrific evil bastard from day one and just manipulated herself into this position to be saved by an Einarion, or she was genuinely just a damsel in distress that like wasn't evil yet at this time. I personally kind of like the she grew evil over the thousands and thousands of years
Years.
as opposed to
Yeah.
the she was evil from the start, because that's just more of an interesting tragedy, but you
Yeah.
can go both ways.
All right.
Anyway,
All
so
right.
very, very powerful sorceress, saved by Ainarian. They marry, which is kind of a surprise because they meet really quickly after his old wife's death, I think. Um, but even then,
By
they just like
elven standards.
even by human standards. So it was like 30 years after, I think, after he drew the Sword of Cain. So yeah, that would be like very quick. Um, and it's kind of strongly implied that, well, you know, he's got like the murder god in, like controlling him half the
Yeah.
time. He's maybe not the nicest husband or the nicest ruler,
Yeah.
but Marathi fucking loves him. Like she adores him.
She's in. She's in on
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So they have another child by the name of Malekith. Who is our main character for this discussion. He has been renamed to Malarian for copyright reasons, but I'm gonna try to call him Malarian. I might slip into Malekith because that's how I always knew him. But we do our best to not bad name people here. So as he's doing this and he keeps fighting demons, eventually he learns that Palador, his former bestie, who grew kind of scared of how much of an abusive asshole he became, is going through with his vortex plan to drain the world of magic.
Right.
And
Right.
by this point, like Palador has kind of forced Ainarian's hand. Like, I am doing this, all the demons are coming to me. You can help me with this now, or we're all going to lose.
We're gonna lose eventually anyway. Might as well get in here
Yeah.
and try. Like, let's try this, and you can help me, or we're fucked.
Yeah, because
Either
like
way.
basically, yeah, because like Ainarian's position was, okay, we're doomed, but let's delay as long as possible because there is a good chance your plan is going to go spectacularly wrong. What Calidor basically did here is, hey, I'm pressing the skip buttons to fast forward to the final boss. You can help me beat it and enact my plan, or we're like losing.
Yeah.
So Ainarian, coping and seething and mauling like nobody's business, goes over to help Calidor, and he fights really, really hard to protect him, to the point where Ainarian 4v1s Greater Demons of Chaos.
Okay.
Like, okay, well, technically a 4v2 because he's on his
I
dragon
was
and
gonna
loses
say,
off his dragon, but still.
and he has two gods inside of him, so that's maybe it's kind of equal. It's like a 4v4.
Okay, fine, but it sounds cooler if you
It
call it a
does sound cool.
4v1.
It's still 4v1, but he does have a dragon.
Yeah, it's like he has plenty of aid, but like still, he takes on a great unclean one, a keeper of secrets, a changer of ways, and a bloodthirster.
All right, that's
And
a
like, don't get me wrong, he takes a beating for this, but like he is able to stall them hard enough that Kalidor is able to pull off his plan and
train their
create
magic.
the Great Vortex. Whereas at first magic basically just like roiled uncontrollably all over the globe in a raging tempest. It now starts just being suckered into this great vortex via a system of pylons and pillars that the elves build across the world, where it's drained into this vortex, which creates the 8 distinct winds of magic as Warhammer knows them today, which is a topic for a future discussion.
Sick.
Um, but basically, as they do this, Kalidor and his wizard buddies have to freeze themselves in time, forever fighting chaos to keep this vortex alive. Kind of like the Emperor and the Astronomicon, except instead of a
Yeah.
lighthouse, this is more like lightning rod.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Same. It definitely has some parallels there. To
Yeah. And the nice thing is they don't need to sacrifice 1,000 elves every day to keep Kalidor going, because
yeah.
they do
Yeah.
not have 1,000 elves a
They don't
day.
have 1,000 elves. Yeah. That's. I
No,
mean, I'm sure they have 1,000 elves, but not a day.
exactly. So Einarion and Indraugnir like absolutely beat up from this, drag their sorry asses back to the Shrine of Cain, plug the sword back in, and then they die and pass from this world. So all of the elves kind of gather, like, okay, our land is in ruins, but we can actually think about a future now and a future by elven standards.
By
It's like we'll
elf,
be around
right?
for a couple millennia.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we should choose who of us is going to become the next king. And there is a very good case to be made that Malarian should be the next king, because they could have easily said this should be hereditary, because they had an Ever Queen up to this point, which was Ainarian's first wife, I believe. But because that's a hereditary position,
Right.
and
So
Ainarian, like, yeah,
I was gonna say, so yeah, it makes sense. If it's hereditary, why not?
yeah. So Ainarian was the first Phoenix king, so this is the time to set precedent. Malarian, to his massive credit, goes, I recognize that, like, I would like to become king in honor of my father, but should you all wish to pick someone else, I'll be happy with that too.
That's
So he basically gives them the chance, like, hey, if you want
yeah,
someone else, you can pick someone else. And they do pick someone else because they were like, okay, Malarium is a baller. He's like 30 years old, or like he's very, very young for an elf.
yeah.
On top
He's
of that,
he's a baby elf. He's
yeah, or like at least like just barely an adult. On top of that, you're a Narian's kid. Your bloodline may be cursed, and also you have your dad's temper, which is great for a wartime leader. But right now we're at peace.
we're at peace. We don't exact like, military. We'll defer to you, but right now, not exactly. You don't need the wartime. Uh, yeah.
So I am noticing that we are currently hitting time.
Oh
Do you
yeah, we're
mind
approaching
going
time.
over by like 10, 15 minutes?
I
Is
think
that
that's probably fine. Yeah.
awesome? Yeah, because this we're getting through quite to the end of my notes fairly quickly at this point.
Perfect.
So um and Malarian is the first to bend the knee to Belshazzar. He's like, I completely recognize this. This is a good decision. Um, this is a good call. I'm not mad. Morathi, naturally, is fucking furious at this. She is quite literally like screaming in rage at her son not becoming king, because she adored Anarian. She loves Malarian. She loves her son. Maybe a little too much, but that's something for later. Um, but Malarian is like, okay, I respect your choice. Belshazzar's a good pick. Good luck. If I stay here, I'm going to become a figurehead for political opposition, whether I want to be or not, because like elves are terminally political.
Yeah.
Like imagine like your most like politics brained Twitter power user and
Oh.
times that by 50, and that's like the least political elf.
Yeah, and they have an extraordinarily long life to breed resentment. So
Exactly. That's a very good point. That foreshadowing is a narrative device. So Malarian recognizes, like, okay, if I stay here, I'm going to become a figurehead for the opposition, whether I want to or not. I'm gonna fuck off on a boat and see what's out there.
there you go. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
We
So he
should
hops on a boat.
buy a boat.
Yeah, we should buy a boat. And he does, and he hops off into a golden age of elven exploration and colonization of the old world. Um, Ulthuan may not be a stand-in for Great Britain, because the stand-in for Great Britain is a shitty little island that nobody cares about in this setting, which is just a fantastic, like,
That's a
beautiful. But they're still like they have like the British desire to conquer the seas and colonize people. The elves colonize basically all over the world, including a lot of the old world. And in doing so, on his travels, eventually Malekith meets the dwarves. And tell me, what do you expect to happen when dwarves meet elves?
They usually, from historically speaking, they're not the most friendly with each other.
You're
But
wrong. They become bros for life. Like, where's my image? Where's my image? Wait, why it's not loading? Hang on. Oh, I think I messed up on saving this. This was like meant to be like the Predator hand clasp
oh
meme.
god, that's fantastic. I'm
So
imagining it.
yeah,
They
basically,
become besties, just right
yeah,
like Legolas and Gimli. Just we're
yeah, they
bros for
are like
life.
bros for life. Like hiking Snorri Whitebeard of the dwarfs and Malarian become besties, like inseparable. Malarian becomes ambassador to the Dwarven Empire, and like these guys, like they are buddy buddy. They are joining together to like kick chaos ass all the way like 7 ways to Sunday. They share some important information with each other, and they are inseparable. Golden age of trade and exploration.
Oh,
Eventually, Malarian, on his travels, goes north to see what's up there. He finds a great obsidian city that's like ancient as all hell. And in here, he finds an incredibly powerful artifact named the Circlet of Iron. And he can see that maybe it's a little bit sus, but it's also really powerful. And he can kind of use that power to kick Chaos's ass.
and he likes kicking Chaos's ass. So
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's worth
Like
trying.
exactly. Like at this point, I would say that his intentions are still perfectly pure. And he puts on the Circlet of Iron, and he like gains 20 levels in Wizard basically immediately.
Yes.
Like his mom already like taught him a couple powerful spells. He was a decent spellcaster, but not on his mom's level. Like his mother is one of the greatest elven sorcerers ever. This Circle of Iron basically let him just like blaze through.
He's just speed running
He's
magic school.
yeah, pretty much. That said, though, this is a lot of power, and power does corrupt. So seeds are being sown. Were being sown when Belshazzar was picked. Continue to be sown here. Eventually, all these colonies from the elves start sending great wealth back to Ulthuan, because that's what colonies are for generally. And Ulthuan grows a little bit decadent. We're like, you know what? It's pretty great. We don't have to like fight for our lives every time we like stick our head out the window anymore. Let's have a bit of wine and like kick back in decadent like pleasure orgies and get like high for a month straight. Uh,
They sound like they're having a good time.
Sounds like they're having a good time. Problem is, Slanesh really agrees.
Yeah, she
So
as she's wont to do.
yeah, so Ulthuan becomes riddled with pleasure cults, and Malarian is kind of like I think he's like recalled to like help deal with it because Belshazzar, to his credit, is like, I'm great peacetime king.
This is a
This is
little
like
worry.
war.
Yeah, a
This
little
is war. I'm not my thing. Malarian, if you'd be so kind to help me out. And gotta keep in mind, there's like centuries, I think, between the election and this happening. So it may sound like a really sudden heel turn, but this has been cooking for a while.
right, right.
Basically, during this stint, Malarian, ambassador to the dwarves, also became kind of like one of the most powerful, wealthy individuals in the colonies. Um, so he's recalled back to Ulthuan to deal with pleasure cults. By this point, he has a taste for power. Uh, that said, though, he still like goes to war with the pleasure cults. Like we're talking full Inquisition level rooting
Okay.
them.
All right. He's
Um,
grilling people.
yeah, like when he finds out his own mother is at the head of them, if not like straight the founder, then at least one of the high priestesses. He claps his own mother in chains and drags her off to the Phoenix King. This man is dedicated to his job.
Yeah. He's got some of his father in him, I suppose.
Yeah. And at this point, he calls a war council in a shrine of Asrian. And on this point, I got a signpost again. Haven't been able to confirm this with primary sources, at least specific bits. So part of this is from the deep dive into Malekith's stream by Lorebirds again. But again, Annie Lowell wrote for Warhammer. I trust him on this. But just to say, I don't have a primary textual source for a couple specific bits and pieces here, but details. So one of those details is you're not allowed to have weapons in the Shrine of Asrian. So everyone comes in there unarmed. And another one of those details is that as this war council was called, Belshazzar held like a little one-on-one audience with Malarian to go tell him like, hey, this is a war situation. You're handling this way better than I could. I'm going to abdicating on on your behalf. Is what we think he was going to say. But like by this point, while being imprisoned, Morathi finally managed to sink her claws into Malarian, like after centuries of trying. And just like, Belshazzar is going to go tell you this, and he's going to like tell you this to take away your power. He's going to tell you this to like marginalize your position. And like you might have me clapped in chains, but I'm your mother, and you can trust me on that, right? Like I want the best for my kid.
Right.
He's going to tell you this. So Malarian, at this point, during that little 1v1, poisons Belshazzar, and the Phoenix King dies just as he's about to abdicate.
He's right so close.
So close. Like, if he'd waited 10 minutes, like real Romeo and Juliet situation, patience for 10 minutes, you motherfucker. It's been centuries. You could have, like,
you couldn't wait 10 more minutes. Give it a day.
Yeah. So, Belshazzar is dead by this point, but the War Council doesn't know that yet. Malarian just walks out stone-faced and says, I found compelling evidence that Belshazzar was behind all the pleasure cults. When I confronted him with this, he took the coward's way out instead of being judged by your peers. In order to more effectively wage war against the pleasure cults, I am nominating myself as Phoenix King and will be assuming direct control.
He just basically goes for it.
This was a very blatant coup.
It's just, that's a coup, yeah. That's I've seen coups, and that's a coup right there.
And like Malarian was super, super, super popular.
Like, and they're like, yeah,
just like, no.
I mean, he didn't need to. He could have just stepped in.
Exactly. Like if he'd not done what he did, and he just like, or even if he'd said that and then let there be a free and fair election between the princes, there's a good chance
he would have won anyway. Yeah.
Now, basically, just said, no, this title is mine with the most transparent fucking coup attempt ever. The princes are all like, that's sus, this is sus, you're shady, I didn't trust that. No. So they reject him. And he's like, okay, well, it's a shame you said that, because you know that rule about, like, not bringing weapons in here?
I don't listen to that.
My guards don't listen to that either. So basically, the entire like cream of like the political top of the elves is just completely murdered in the shrine to their own high god by Malarian's followers. While that's going on, Malarian casts himself into the flame of Asrian, because that's tradition for the Phoenix King. Now Belshazzar did the same. You got to walk through the flames to become Phoenix King.
Right.
And he is turned into an extra crispy piece of like burnt meat. Like he just completely scarred, like flesh from the bone, completely like utterly burned to a crisp, and he just cannot deal with the pain and just barely manages to fling himself back out the way he came in. And as all the princes of the elves are being being slaughtered by Malarian's allies, he is carried off by his followers to basically back to Naggaroth, because now a full civil war is in swing between now leaderless high elves hastily electing the grandson of Calidor, the guy that set up the Vortex, as
Right.
their new king. Originally, his name was Imric. He renames himself Calidor II in honor of Grandpappy,
There you go.
and it's Calidor the Phoenix King versus Malarian, who now styles himself as the Witch King.
Aha.
Um, yeah. So um, he has a renegade priest of Vol, the god of smithing, forge him a dark magical suit of armor that is fused directly to his skin.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
basically like, yeah, listen, I have been burnt by the flames of a god. A little like molten metal isn't gonna do shit
What?
to me.
Yeah.
Just like
What? Just put it
bring it
on.
on.
Come on. Let's go.
Exactly.
Pour it on me.
Exactly. So basically the elves of Naggaroth and the ones that side with Malarian at this point just go, but they don't quite go full chaos is the interesting thing, because they still hate chaos, a lot of them. All of them. Morathi is quite fond of Slanesh, but generally speaking, most of them can think chaos is despicable, but we can master it and use it. And not
Okay.
in a way that like the Primarchs think they can master it and use it, but are completely its bitches. No, these guys actually
Are
may enslave
actually
the greater
using the
demon at some
power.
point.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good. Yeah. You've got to. If you are able to control a greater demon, you've got a pretty good handle on things.
Yeah. So at this point, it's like a full-on civil war. Like dad is fighting son, mother is fighting daughter, brother is fighting brother, etc. Like full-on civil war. Like most of the elves from Naggaroth sided with Malarian, but not nearly all of them. And simultaneously, the other kingdoms had a lot of like Malarian sympathizers.
Okay. So yeah. So it is a maelstrom of
Complete
fighting
chaos.
all over.
Yeah. But eventually, despite summoning demons and making pacts and whatnot, Calidor II is able to start pushing Malarian back into Naggaroth. And eventually, Malarian grows super desperate and is like, okay, I'm going to go for the wildcard maneuver. If I can't have ult one, no one can. And he leads an army with his most powerful sorcerers to the Vortex to start undoing the Vortex. He
Bold
is, this is,
strategy.
yeah, it's like, you know what? You guys liked my dad when everything was chaos, so maybe you'll like me when
And
everything is
everything's
chaos.
chaos. Hmm.
Uh, and his sorcerers start undoing the spells that are freezing the vortex in time and causing all the magic to drain into it. And Malarian is like, because this was kind of like a lightning strike. Like we're losing everywhere else, we're throwing all our resources into this to hopefully win this. He starts to win this, and the vortex is coming undone, and like it's a cataclysm. Like I mean, just look at what's happening
Yeah.
here: like, tsunamis, earthquakes, pure chaos, whatever. Um, but eventually, as the vortex comes undone, we still had our guys frozen in time. Paladar the First and all his mages.
I was wondering about him because he's been frozen in time fighting chaos for eternity. Couple
Out come
thousand years.
Chekhov's out come Chekhov's wizards with the steel chair. They are unfrozen in time, and they basically immediately realize what's going on. No, you don't get to do that, and they just like press the delete button on all of his wizards. Because like
All
Malarian
right.
has strong wizards, they're
But
not on Calidor's
not
level.
that strong, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So just as the vortex is about to come undone, all of like Malarian's wizards drop dead, and the vortex is restabilized by Calidor as he refreezes himself in time. But by this point, Ulthuan is already so heavily damaged that a lot of the outer kingdoms on like outer coast of Ulthuan start sinking into the sea, etc. But Malarian and his elves are like beaten and battered and defeated, but they're not destroyed. So with one last great effort, they flee back to Naggaroth, and with great spells, they literally dislodge their palaces from the ground and cast them to sea into like giant floating fortresses. And he kind of like pulls he pulls a like, we'll be back. And they flee across the sea on their floating fortresses. As you can see in the new lands, Naggaroth has a giant chunk ripped out of it. In general, Ulthuan is a lot more beat up than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. She
And
just rips
uh,
off chunks.
yeah, Thanks. And let me
Fantastic.
very quickly grab the new the world map again. Where is it? All the way back here.
One
Yeah.
more. There it is.
So, from the Sunken Lands and Shenlands, they basically flee first north into the Sea of Chill, and then they basically settle Naggaroth over here. And this is just like a really cool piece of lore that I really like. A fair few of their big cities were just literally those chunks of land that they ripped out
Ripped, ripped out.
from
That,
Ulthuan, and they just floated them over here, and they just rammed them into the coast. Like, this is our city now.
yeah. Hey, look. Why build a city from the ground up when you could just rip a city out of the ground and
What if we
then
take What if we take our city and push it
and then
somewhere
over
else?
else? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
is,
straight SpongeBobbed it.
yeah, they SpongeBob it. They didn't do that with all of their cities, though. They still have plenty that are just literal floating fortresses terrorizing the oceans. And from here, Malarian and the Dark Elves fundamentally split from the High Elves of Ulthuan. And there's also the guys that didn't get involved in this whole conflict, the guys that just wanted to grill, kind of retreated into the forests of the colonies and would
Okay.
become the Wood Elves.
All right. So
Um,
they become the Wood Elves, and then now you've got the three-way split of
yeah,
dark,
and
high, and wood.
yeah, and Malarian to this day has been fighting to like stake his claim on the Phoenix throne. Meanwhile, as they've been gathering their strength, they've basically developed an entire like pirate raiding for slaves economy that they then bring home to like work to the bone.
Right.
Which the faction in the North America analog terrorizes the seas with their floating fortresses and has an economy built on slavery.
That
Games
sounds
Workshop is many things.
familiar.
Subtle is not of them. Like Games Workshop is many things. Subtle is not one of them.
No, yeah, that's pretty on the nose, I'd say.
And I just want to throw in one last bit. This is from memory. I don't quite know if this fits in a timeline before the Sundering or after, but remember how Malarian was? I think it's after because it's with the next Phoenix King, if I'm not mistaken. Um, remember how Malarian was bros for life with the dwarves?
Oh yeah, the dwarves.
Yeah. So they were still besties with the elves, and then dwarven caravans started to get raided by guys wearing elven clothing and having pointy ears. And they didn't know about the Civil War going on, so they're like, what the fuck are you doing, Ulthuan?
What? Why? What's happening?
Yeah. And it's like, you know how like normal fantasy dwarves are like all about honor and like have
Yeah.
stakes of their asses a mile wide?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Warhammer dwarves have like entire forests lodge up their rectum.
Okay. All right. So they are displeased, to say
They
the
are
least.
displeased. They quite literally keep a book of grudges that they have to like avenge at some point. Like these
Okay.
are the pettiest motherfuckers on the planet. It's great. Um, so yeah, they're like, what the hell? We liked you guys. We're trading with you. Why are you raiding us? And they sent like a delegation to Ulthuan to ask for an explanation. Unfortunately, the Phoenix King that is currently leading the High Elves, I think this was Calidor the Third. This is top of my head. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Was unfortunately an arrogant piece of shit
Well,
and
as
was
high
like,
elves
we,
are known to be.
yeah, but like this guy was an arrogant piece of shit by elf
By
standards.
high. Okay. So
So he was like, we didn't do this. Why are you lying? This is an insult to our honor, and we're going to repay it in kind. And he forcibly had the dwarven emissary shaved.
okay. Well,
Like that is not
that
slapping in the face. That is like,
that's a no. That's a hard no.
yeah, that is like slapping you in the face, spitting on your mother, and then like fucking your sister in
Yeah,
front of you.
it's at the same time. It's not
Yeah,
good.
it's messed up. And so that like causes the dwarves and the elves to have such a massive fallout that it completely drains both the elves and the dwarves of like their peak strength. It basically kills the golden age that both of these guys have.
We're having, yeah.
Yeah, and the dwarves are kind of like forced back into their mountain ranges. The elves are forced back into Ulthuan. They still maintain a couple colonies here and there. The dwarf would face greater cataclysms, I believe, right after that. But like for the elves, that like first the sundering with the dark elves, then that giant war with the dwarves. They were spent. They
Yeah.
were just so messed up to the point that they still haven't recovered from that.
Okay,
And likely never will.
they're still feeling it.
Yeah. So a lot more happens after that. Malarian becomes an entire king, goes off to have a great bunch of adventures after that. But that is where I will end my discussion of Malarian, who I would like to argue is a much better thematic analog to Horus than anything Chaos has to offer, because the Everchosen are kick-ass, but this is the ultimate tragic fall from grace, betrayal, civil war story in fantasy.
I definitely see the parallels there that you make, and that's fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time to lay this out for me. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having this chat with me. It's been absolutely amazing. Do you have any final comments, thoughts, questions?
No. I'm just, this has been great. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. It's been a wonderful time. This has been our pilot episode of SigMarines. I'm almost certain there will be more, because this was just far too much fun.
Yeah, it was too much fun.
That said, I had this idea with another friend of mine, Tally, who is currently off on a holiday in Ireland, so we still need to hash out a schedule. I'm assuming we're going to be rotating hosts, because this is really fun. If we're going to do this every week with the same person, I think we're going to burn out quite quickly. So I'm aiming for a rotating schedule setup.
Nice.
We might also have our guests rotate between other people that know a lot about Warhammer, 40k, but not fantasy. But we'd definitely love to have you again, Pat. This has been a fantastic time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, anything you need to plug or to chat?
No, I think I'm good. You can find me on all the social medias, as ADHD does. Only one D. That's it.
Wonderful. You can find me on Blue Sky at anarchoshanties.bluesky.social. I will probably be setting up a YouTube channel to put the recording of the stream on, assuming we have a recording, because you said you were going to record it, so I don't have one.
I did. It's recording.
Thank you.
We've got a recording. We're streaming, and since it's on YouTube and Twitch, there should be a video on both of those. As soon as I finish hitting the button here.
Yeah, I was like 45 minutes in, I realized, oh shit, I didn't hit record. I hope Pat's doing that.
Nope, I did it. I got it.
I'm not going to stop the stream for that, so thank fuck. If you don't mind sending me the recording, I would like to put it on a dedicated SigMarines YouTube channel for ease of watching. Then thank you very much. This has been a wonderful time, and hopefully we'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See ya. I'll stop the stream now. Cheers.
That's good.